Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Welcome to the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Trish.
And this is our podcast. We talk about wrestling news and various topics from different promotions, primarily AEW, but also New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, and topics from around the wrestling world. Whatever we find interesting, and we hope you will too. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find our content on our podcast feed, the Social Suplex Podcast feed, as well as on Twitter, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We also encourage you to check out the Social Suplex newsletter, which is being published every month and available at socialsuplex.com. It contains crazy amounts of news from dozens of promotions across the world, along with interesting features. And you never know what you're going to find out in the pages of the Social Suplex newsletter. So we encourage you to check it out. The next newsletter is coming out in the next couple weeks, I believe.
This week.
This week. Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of stuff in it, folks. It's not on a regular schedule. You'll just see all the tweets when we make them. Today is Sunday, July 12th, 2026, and we are back with episode 65. That's right, 65 plus episodes of this podcast, which God bless you if you've listened to any of them, let alone all of them. And we are going to start today off with the WWE and the huge title changes that we had this week. Obviously, many of them planned for months. Obviously, AEW's title changes this week, clearly a reaction to the title changes we saw. We had Sami Zayn roll up Cody Rhodes in a three-way match with Cody Rhodes and Gunther at whatever they're calling the Saudi shows, Crown Jewel, Night of Champions.
Night of Champions.
Yeah, Sellout City, whatever they call it. They were in Saudi Arabia. Sami Zayn did a one on a roll up, cried, was super excited, blah, blah. He held that title, folks, for 9 days. I don't think he had a single defense. And then on Raw, he was due to face Cody Rhodes because Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso had a match on the SmackDown previous where the person who won would be the number one contender. And so that was Cody Rhodes. And the video package at the start of this Raw, Trish made me watch Raw, folks. All right, I don't want to say Trish made me watch Raw. Trish was like, you should watch this. And I was like, okay. So I actually watched the beginning of Raw, and they start off with a video package as they always do because many people lose brain cells. There was a whole thing on Twitter this week about how Americans don't read and can't follow basic narratives. This is clearly seen on Raw because we had a video package that showed Sami Zayn winning. And when Sami Zayn won, the crowd went batshit fucking insane. You could see people leaping out of their seats, which is a thing that happens in wrestling. I think you always know when it's like, especially with WWE, because it's like, audience reaction.wav. You want to make sure you see them, people leaping out of their seats. And then they showed clips of Cody Rhodes beating Jey Uso, and everyone sat quietly and clapped politely. So there was not the level of, but I enjoyed the video clip for that. So we started off Raw with Sami Zayn showing up ecstatic, thrilled, almost perhaps a touch too cocky, rolled in, and Gunther immediately attacked Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes was then not cleared to compete, and it was a shot. But whatever Aldis, whatever the other bald guy is, I don't know. The two men who look like penis. Two men who look like penises, where one of them was there to tell Sami Zayn that unfortunately he was still going to have to defend his title because the fans of Chicago deserved a title match. And so, of course, the audience is chanting, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk. And there we had like the world's longest entrance for Sami Zayn, where he just wandered aimlessly around the ring for what felt like hours until we got a shot of CM Punk coming in some like gritty, CM Punk again, from looking incredible from the tip of his natural hair down to the toe pose of his naturally enhanced strong body, showed up, got chanted, and then had a match with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, God bless him, bumped his little ass off, flew himself all around, gave himself at least potentially one concussion, it looked like. And Punk took his little tiny steps, panted laboriously. He looked like he was out of breath by the time his entrance was done, but who the fuck knows? And he beat Sami Zayn. It was fine. It was by no means the worst CM Punk match that I've seen in WWE. I don't think it was the best either. I think it's one of those things where you look at these guys and you're like, one of them is a talented wrestler and the other one is CM Punk. But like, it happened. And so Sami Zayn then went off TV and he did give a social media promo, but we have not seen him since. And then Friday night on SmackDown, CM Punk came out and gave a rousing speech. It was one of his, he patented AEW speeches where he name dropped a whole bunch of people that he quote unquote wants to face until the big star actually came out to face him, which was Cody Rhodes. The crowd went mild for this, folks. I really implore you to go watch. The clips are still up on Twitter. Go to YouTube where I saw it. Nobody gave a flying fuck. At one point, Cody was like, one of them was like, this is the match that the fans have been waiting forever for. And the crowd went, it was so, I was like, nobody fucking cares. And they were, and one of the penis guys was in the ring going, it's unbelievable. We're going to have CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. And the crowd goes, no, it was right. So it was just very interesting to me because the other thing that happened on this Raw that I did see was Seth Rollins. Well, first of all, before we get into any of that, right? So all of this Cody stuff, Trish, the Cody stuff, the Sami stuff, the Punk stuff. What are your thoughts about this? CM Punk talked about how he'd been intensely negotiating with one of the penises to bring him back so he could have a match.
You can't carry on calling him that.
I can't be expected to. One of them is British and the other one is bald, or one of them is bald and one of them is British. I don't know. It's all I can think of.
Okay.
But regardless, it was kind of one of those bait and switch things where it's it's going to be Cody versus Sami, but it's Chicago, so CM Punk had to do something. And was this part of the negotiation to get him back on TV after he was at home for 3.5 months for, undisclosed reasons that nobody really wants to talk about? Did you think this? I mean, I thought this kind of sucked for Sami. There was a whole bunch of stuff that came out on Twitter where people were like, TKO doesn't believe that Sami Zayn is the guy, which I was like, no shit, Sherlock. Possibly one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Possibly one of the greatest baby faces in America. And, they don't see it with him, but they never fucking have, so who cares? Did you think this was a good way to win? I mean, at one point, people thought that Sami Zayn was going to win the title at WrestleMania. Did you think this was a good victory follow-up for him? Or were you like me, kind of like, Jesus Christ?
Well, firstly, I did not tell you had to watch a whole Raw. I was then the accusation.
That's fair. That's valid and fair.
I did not tell you had to whole Raw. I told
you gently
you had to watch...
suggested.
No, I said you need to see the Sami Punk thing and you need to see the Seth promo that we'll get to in a bit. I didn't tell you had to watch the whole Raw. If you watch the whole Raw, that's on you. That is on you. No. Anyway. But no, I'm not taking that. I'm not responsible.
We also have to talk later about one of the penises is apparently going to have a match with Gunther, which blows my fucking mind. Poor Gunther, he just has to keep fucking facing these announcers.
Maybe they just keep teasing it, and it's just
never, Jessica Carr.
Yeah, and, the referee and Becky Lynch.
Yeah. 3 years into that non-existent feud.
You'll get that match sometime, just like when we get the Cody and Punk heel turns.
Oh, God help us.
Well, we started well here. So I thought that the Sami thing was very much we would like some nice headlines, please, stuff. Because when you look at what they're building for SummerSlam, the thing that would make the most sense if you are going to do Cody and Punk, and that has been their long-term plan, and no matter where Punk's been or whether he's not wanted to be at TV or he's been at TV, whatever, that was what they were going to come back to. So this one felt very much like, okay, it's the weekend of Forbidden Door. We're already loading up 2 shows against the AEW pay-per-view the next day. We want all the headlines that weekend. And they look at that card for Forbidden Door and you look at it and say, okay, you can't see a natural big headline, right? Ospreay wins the Owen Hart Cup. Well, everybody knows that's coming anyway.
Right.
Okay. Mercedes wins the Owen Hart Cup on, everyone kind of knew that was happening as soon as she came back into it and they did that switch. So there was nothing that was going to be like, oh, we can throw that out everywhere. So doing Sami title win in Saudi Arabia, obviously they wanted all the headlines are there and him speaking in Arabic and that sort of thing. And then it just felt like, oh, and we just want people to be nice to us for a weekend. Like, people are just going to say, oh, you know, they gave him this moment. This is great. Look how incredible it is. Look how it's better than everybody else. And it's like, yeah, you got a moment, and that's all you got. That's all you got. You got 9 days. You should be like Kota Ibushi and start adding extra hours. You might have got to 10.
But I enjoyed that. Good job. Good job.
Yeah. But it's like, this was the guy that was very much a large part responsible for the turnaround in their business with his involvement in the bloodline. That was where the story set in stone. It's the guy that was, drawing huge house show numbers and ratings with them, across from Roman Reigns going into the spring of 23, 24. I lose track of what years we were in. 23. So you can look at that and think that's when they should have crowned him. Like, that's when when they had that decision there, and they didn't do it.
Yep.
And once they made that decision, and then obviously they palmed him off into the tag title thing with Kevin Owens, but it was enough of a payoff for their fans because obviously Cody was in the other spot to make it worthwhile for them. But for him personally, that was an acknowledgement that you aren't going to be that guy.
Yep.
And we don't see you like that. So you don't need all these things where they're throwing them all out in the news this week and it's going out to Dave and to everyone else, because you've already told that story. You told that story then. You had that chance to do it when he was really, really hot, hotter than most people will ever get as a babyface in their career, quite frankly. And you didn't do it. So now you're doing it as a moment that you're throwing out there just to, grab some headlines, say to people that we actually reward people and look at this shock booking and it's not all predictable. But all it is, it's a transition. He's a transitional champion into CM Punk. So they could do this thing and they'll link it all back up and say we planned it all along because the championship opportunity fell out of the sky, like the promo that Punk cut, back after WrestleMania. The same one where he said he wasn't going away. And it's like, okay, yeah, great. What did you get out of it? So Cody Rhodes got away with doing a fake job. Fantastic. Didn't have to lose CM Punk. Okay, didn't lose his title there. Is beyond ice cold. Like, there is nothing in his way. That was the thing. So when you got to the CM Punk promo on the Friday on the SmackDown, it was like there was a few things with that. So first of all, it was like, okay, is he going to play off like hinting he's like a hypocrite? He's going to tell he's a heel turn. Why do we keep saying this after the first fucking 5 years? We should know better. But you thought, okay, there's an angle there potentially because of the way he's come back in and just taken the belt. He's not worked for it. He's not done all the things that he's preached about for all these years. He's not earned anything. He's just walking back in and taking the belt. And it's like, no, I just do my catchphrases, do my thing. And then I'm going to sit here and I'm going to try and build up, as you said, to like the promo to Cody coming out so we can set up this match. And so I'm going to read all these other names out and I want people to pop. And then I want them to chant Cody, and I'm going to keep stopping so they chant Cody, and they don't chant Cody.
They don't chant Cody. And Cody got the least reaction from the audience of any of the names he mentioned. Like, nobody that he talked about, like, the crowd was into a few of them, but for the most part, and nobody cared about Cody being the name. They weren't interested.
And then he comes out and they try and set up the match, and it's like the response is just kind of lukewarm. And that's one of your main events for SummerSlam. And it's the match that you could have seen coming from March. It's the same people, it's the same involvement. He's saying, oh, Sami wants to talk a bit about social media and stuff, and I'll give him a match. And obviously they're doing a tag at MSG for Saturday Night's Main Event, and it's like, okay, right. So it's back to where it was. It's no different. So you did the Sami thing, so you got a nice week of headlines. People are like, oh, you really rewarded them, and then you shoved them in the face. It's like it's like giving a new shirt and then punching them into the locker, It's like, but that's what they do. That is what they do. Like, we say, well, they do these other things, but that's what they do. It's just, and people say, okay, Sami could have a great story out of here because obviously he's doing the kind of tweener fake babyface character, and it could reset him. But does it really matter?
No,
not really. And you carry on into now this Punk Cody thing going into SummerSlam where there's no real heat. So where you're going to go for your heat, we all know where they're going to go for their heat. They're going to start making references that no one cares about. And I don't think there's any excitement. I don't see anything from anywhere of people being really, really excited for this match that should be, on paper, after these years. It should be a big match. It should be a massive match. It should be something that people are like making graphics for like straight away that are probably arguably going to be better than what the AI slop that WWE have put up for their graphics.
Well,
they'll
they'll spell Minnesota correctly.
Well, yeah, we can have nice things occasionally. But yeah, and there's nothing. And there's been no impact on ticket sales since Punk got the belt. There's been no impact on ticket sales since they announced that match, really. It's just ticking on at a similar rate to what it was previously. So it's like nothing. And then on the other side, the other main event is Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. A match that is aging me, quite frankly.
Well, this ties back to Seth's promo, right? Because same Raw where Seth opened the show after they do all their little everybody walking in and their video packages. Seth opened the show with a 15-minute promo. The first 8 minutes was him complaining about Roman Reigns making more money than he makes, having more opportunities than he does. He brought up the Shield and nobody gave a fuck. He brought up a bunch of stuff, waited for applause lines, and had total fucking silence. It was really almost incredible. Like, you had said to me, you got to watch this because it's bad. And I was like, okay. And it was so much worse than I thought it was going to be. Like, and part of it, I think, is his delivery. Like, he did. I think that there's different types of promo styles, but he certainly came out kind of low energy. And I think that especially for a WWE crowd, they kind of thrive off of somebody who's like engaging with them. And for all that you can say about Punk.
That's a good screw up.
Wow, that's sorry, folks. All that you can say about Punk, he definitely vocally, in his tone and in the way he talks, engages with the audience. Like, there's something about how he presents his sentences that encourages the audience to talk back to him or to listen. And I think with Seth, it was just this sort of low droning, like, Roman has been mean to me. The funny part was at one point he's like, that kid in the front row, he's what, 4 or 5? And the kid's like, I'm 9. I was like, yo, that's not great. The kid's 9. But whatever. But it was another one of these, like, nobody gave a fuck. They're talking about the Shield. The Shield's been gone. Like, Mox has been in AEW for as long as he was on WWE at this point, right? Like, that's kind of where we're at. So it's like the Shield's been over with for a while. And I get that it was a big deal, and I get that everybody loved it. But at some point, you got to come up with a new reason for these guys to feud, or else, like you said, we're going to have the same problem we have, which is that nobody gives a flying fuck.
The problem is with it, right? There's multiple problems with it. But so if you'd done this maybe 5 years ago, maybe just after Moxley had left for AEW, like, you probably would have had some kind of meat on the bones for doing something between Seth and Roman, right?
Right.
And they did the weird little draw at the Royal Rumble and stuff.
Yeah.
DQ that went nowhere. But it's like, it's so far beyond now. And me, who, like, was huge into the Shield. When was it? 14 years ago? 13, 14 years ago? Like, that's over a decade. Like, I'm like, I had no grey hairs then. It's like, it's so far ago. And you're not doing this with a Roman Reigns who is a big heel or anything. You're doing this with, he's a tweener. When he was a heel, he ate you up in the build when they did that build up to the WrestleMania in Philadelphia with the tag. And it's like, so you need to do something different. You need to bring something different. And instead we went back to the same meta lines where basically it's like, oh yeah, he makes more money than me. He works much less. And it's like, well, isn't that the goal? That's the goal most people aim for. And yeah. And people don't care. Like, you're just like, no, we like Roman. We like Roman. It's like,
well, the funny part Seth gave this promo and basically, like you said, was bitching about the fact that Roman makes more money than him. Roman doesn't show up to work. Roman was given opportunities. And then out comes LA Knight, who essentially says, you're a fucking hypocrite. You're complaining about the stuff. The same thing could be said about you. You get opportunities. He's like, I beat so-and-so. I beat so-and-so. I don't get a world title, championship or whatever, all that other stuff. And it was pretty apropos. I was like, yeah, he has a point. And the crowd sure as fuck woke up when LA Knight came out. And again, some of this is just they want to chant catchphrases and all that other stuff, but they still were awake. And it certainly injected some life into the fucking promo. And then Seth went off and LA Knight got beat up by somebody. Was the New Bloodline or Timu Bloodline? I don't remember who it was. But yeah, it was, I was like, yeah, it's hard to argue this point. And some of this kind of made me interested because I think one of the things that we talked about in our last episode was the fact that there's guys at WWE who just don't seem to want to, people are like, what has Gunther done? We talked about that. What has Gunther done in the last 6 months, right?
Mhm.
What are some of these other guys done? What has LA Knight done? What has Jacob Fatu? It feels like there's always this big burst of energy when someone new shows up in WWE. And it's like, oh, wow, look at what they're going to do. And what they usually do is end up losing. And then they sort of stay in that upper mid-card area where they're not the big stars, but they're the big stars that are going to, these are the guys the big stars are going to beat. And they'll be in like an undercard match, or they'll get, maybe a tag feud or something like that. And I was kind of fascinated by this because I was like, am I just thinking about this wrong? And I ended up going into Cage Match and looking to see who Seth, Punk, Cody, and Roman had lost to over the last 2 years. And it was really kind of interesting because for the most part, these guys kind of only lose to each other. So Punk lost one singles match to Roman, one singles match to Cena, and one singles match to Drew McIntyre. But then he's lost 3 separate singles matches to Seth. But yeah, and that's it. Like he beat Drew a bunch.
That feels like on purpose.
I know. When you go through this, I'll let me hit my point, and you'll see why I'm saying that.
Sure.
He beat Drew a bunch of times, and I also want to make it clear, I'm not counting like multi-mans or 3-ways or whatever, and I'm not counting tag matches or like anything like that. So that's Punk, and then Roman has lost to Bronson Reed and Cody, and that's it. That's it. Going back to like 2023, because it's really amazing if you go look at, you think Roman is part-time, and then you look at his cage matches, and you're like, oh shit, that motherfucker is really part-time. Cody has lost to Sami in the 3-way. He lost to Gunther by DQ. He's lost to Drew, and he's lost to Seth. Seth has lost to Braun Breaker, Gunther, LA Knight, Bronson Reed, and Drew McIntyre. And that's just in the last couple of years. So, and those are singles matches. So Seth clearly loses to these guys more than others. But it's definitely true that I'm not wrong on this. There is like a ceiling here where there's the super main eventers who don't lose, and those are your big time title match guys. But I also think that we're seeing this in the Seth and Roman lead up, that there's diminishing returns on this. Like, unless you're going to pivot and do something new and interesting with this relationship, the fact that Roman is a part-timer who's never there and makes a shit ton of money, like, we've played this out. Like, yeah, everybody can comment on it. What else are you going to say?
That was a WrestleMania build. Like, there was a WrestleMania build.
Yes.
And Roman was still the bigger babyface in the end. Like you've just basically, you can't rehash something that they've just said he triumphed on 3 months ago. Like, they literally said, he's never here and Punk's old. And the winner was, he's never here. Like,
he still wins. They're still willing to pay him, and they're still willing to beat him. I don't know. It's just, you think that at some point, your audience is going to get less interested when you have a finite number of permutations, or when the people involved, who the winner's always going to end up being, right?
But
I think that's
the thing, they are, isn't it? Because when you look at this, so you have this issue now, where we talked about it originally when we talked about because this all comes back to like the pay structure thing we were talking about, and everything that's going on with like the New Day, obviously, being asked to reduce their deals and leaving. Sheamus now in the same situation, and it's like, so the top of the main card is getting even more ring fence now, and there's this want to do so in a way because of some of their partnerships that they're the people that are seen as valuable. Yeah, the people that are already established are the ones that are valuable to them. So everything's kind of closed in. And, you could throw in that group Brock Lesnar if you wish to. I think that would work as well.
Yes.
And then you've got all these people underneath who have been talked about, like you mentioned Jacob Fatu earlier, LA Knight. Obviously, they think he has a ceiling in ring. Gunther, defeat John Cena next 6 months. How did that work out? As we probably thought it would. Trick Williams, who has the big entrance but is struggling with a lot of the other things. And then Obafemi, who won the King of the Ring and then said, "No, I don't want my title match. It's fine."
That was unbelievable.
I don't know. I don't want it. I don't want it. Like, it doesn't. The belt don't matter. Belts don't matter. I need to finish this thing with Brock Lesnar because he won one match back. Like, what? What are we doing? Like, that sort of thing. And it's one of them that I know that, like Dave said, that they planned for him to win the King of the Ring from before, like, it was announced, when they announced it for the winner to get a title shot at SummerSlam. Okay. But they had...
I don't know. I always get a little bit dubious when there's some fucked up weird booking thing and Dave's like, they planned this the whole time. Because I'm like, did they? Or are they telling you now that they did? Like...
Well, it's one of them things, because you look at it and you go, they planned, and what people will tell you they planned, is they planned Obafemi and Brock Lesnar, and they planned Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, right? So they had those planned. So when you put Seth Rollins in the tournament, and you put, Obafemi in the tournament, it's like, well, which one's going for the title?
Right.
Seth Rollins. So that would be a presumption. And it's funny because this came right after that kind of Clash in Italy show they did, where everyone went nuts about how much they beat Obafemi, they beat Braun Breaker. There was just a run of beating these people that were once seen as, Jacob Fatu got beat again in the street fight, non-street fight tribal rules main event. So it's like you had these people that people kind of had hope in, because watching people rise up and that sort of thing is always so important for keeping investment, because otherwise you get to this point where it is now, where you're stagnant at the top, and you're stagnant at the top where you're putting out matches that people have never had before, like the Cody Rhodes CM Punk one, in terms of this variation of Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, and nobody gives a fuck. And it's like, so you're now at a point where that's stagnation. That's what that looks like. And it's like, who's going to move out them spots? Because these guys haven't got that long left. Cody probably has longer than most, but Punk doesn't have another 10 years on him.
Good God, he's lucky if he makes it 3.
Mate, if he swells up anymore, he won't make it 2.
Oh, you're expecting a bone to fall off at some point, like a muscle to completely detach from the bone, or another one of those pec injuries or something. I mean, again,
should be watching that Conor McGregor thing from last night and cringing, to be honest. That's the same thing, right?
And again, we understand he's straight edge, so this is completely natural muscle building in a 47, 48-year-old man. We get that. We would never accuse him of anything otherwise, but it still seems like the kind of thing that's going to lead to an injury.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you go to Turkey you can get your body done as well as your hair. I don't know. Maybe. But anyway, he's,
allegedly.
Allegedly. He's a
perfectly natural
go hairline. Perfectly, yeah. His hair actually does look more natural in his body, and that's quite impressive. Anyway, his age is...
They got some great fucking guys in Turkey, I'm telling you. Those guys know what they're doing. Look at MJF. That shit almost looks real.
He gels it weird, though, don't he? He has that weird thing where it goes back and it looks more fake than ever. It looks like a wig. And I'm like, why do you do that?
Well, that's part of the problem. That's one of the things with Punk, whereas if you look at where his bald spot is, and the same with Cena, their bald spots were in very weird places. And I'm like, that's not where a man's natural bald spot is. There's something funky going on here. I don't know.
Is that where they did the graphs? I don't know.
Everybody has to look like... Nobody can look like a normal person anymore. Everybody has to look like a freak.
Yeah, it's TV for you. Anyway, but we are. But, his age is catching up. How long has Roman Reigns got carrying on doing what he's doing? Maybe he has longevity in terms of he can do it for a while, in terms of he's not around too much. He's not exactly wrestling a huge amount. So, but there's only so long that you can carry on with the same people in the same spots. That's a universal rule in wrestling. It's like, the longer that you do that, the more people tune out, because they've seen it. And especially in this kind of culture that we're in currently, you need new things all the time. And you may get away with that at some point because you're having moments, right? So you had, Sami Zayn won, we have a moment. And Obafemi won King of the Ring, and we've got a moment. And it's like, that works to a degree, but you aren't working on them just turning up every now and again. You need them to turn up as destination shows now for every single taping, because you want to get money out of that. You want them to turn up to everything, like big event. You want 2-night SummerSlams, which in Minnesota was always going to be a disaster. And guess what? It's a disaster. But it's like, people say, you can't say it's a disaster, it's around 20k. Well, the last time they had what looked at 21 on the map, it ended up being 17, was when they tried to run the Money in the Bank in Las Vegas the second year, after they ran the SummerSlam the year before, and they cancelled it and moved to an arena. So it's not that far off those numbers. The only one comparable for SummerSlam is Nashville, which did 4 weeks out, was at 26k and ended up at 40. Well, they're below that. They're 4 or 5k below that, for depending on which night. So they're not great numbers when you're putting on Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, if you think about this traditionally, and Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk. That tells you that people... No, it's not. And
people are not interested. There's also a lot less, you see a lot less hype than you did around WWE, and people, excited about it and talking about it the way that they did when, they were even a year ago, right? And it just seems like people have checked out and they're just not into it anymore.
No, so and part of it, I think, is because you've made it destination programming, quote unquote, right?
Right.
So if you want to watch Raw now, you have to go onto Netflix. You can't just switch over in the middle of Monday Night Football come September.
Right.
you have to actually load the app and do that, and that puts a barrier in the way. So you need to have enough things to make that a destination, and that's the same globally. If you look at how many people watch Raw now on a week basis compared to how many people watched in all those markets previous to going to Netflix, it's completely different. And it has its other benefits. You know, you're probably going to attract a younger audience overall. You're probably going to have the thing of being on Netflix will probably help it as a live ticket compared to SmackDown, and the variation between Raw and SmackDown is increasing. You know, Raw is holding up better. It's still down, but it's holding up better, and SmackDown is cratering. So there is something to that. But in terms of like your media thing, your whole strategy is to keep increasing destination viewing, and you're not able to do that with what you're doing currently because you can miss however many weeks of this and you will see nothing.
Because again, they're still trying to sell municipalities on paying for Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah.
Not just the 2-night SummerSlams and everything else, but on Raw and SmackDown, which is, you know, crazy given the numbers they're doing right now.
Yeah, and it's like that's the thing. So it's like you can say, I think there's this thinking, there's like a traditional wrestling thinking, right? And then there's the thinking that you need to do when they're in a business like they are. So it's like, oh, you know, if they draw 6,000 like they did in Oklahoma for SmackDown on Friday night, compared to like 9,000 for the Raw last night over there, oh, it's fine, it's great. Like it's still a great number, you know, it's still historically considered a great number, but it's like they need you to go in more numbers. They need you to be able to convince these places to then bid for them because that's the business now. It's not so much about selling the tickets, the sort of thing. And it's the same with SummerSlam, right? Like you've got 20K now. Okay, if you get that up to 35, it looks nice on paper, but it's not what they're paying you for because they are paying you for people to come in early. They are paying for people to stay for 3-4 days. They are paying for people to spend money in the city, and people that are coming from further afield are more likely to spend more money than people that are coming from close by. They don't want to sell tickets to locals. That sounds awful. Sorry if you're from Minneapolis, St. Paul. But they do not want that. What they want you to do is to fly in from somewhere else, to come in from other countries, to, that's the kind of people that they're after because that's who's going to spend more money and make it worthwhile for these cities to invest. And they're not going to do that. And it's going to be really interesting now to see, do we continue to see these amount of deals being made? Are they going to be immune to it for some period of time because of the rest of their history? Will they be able to kind of, this is like one show, right, where we started to see this kind of cratering, but it was always predictable. But it's like, they've got away with Vegas by saying, oh, it's second year, we shouldn't have done it, that sort of thing. And Nick Khan's been very heavy on pushing that point, and that's the reason why. So maybe you can still sell other places on this yet, but you're not going to be able to continue this for very long unless you change something. And changing something at the moment makes me wonder what that is, because you've got Obafemi, you're going to wait on him now until allegedly WrestleMania, right? At least you're going to wait on him. But then once he gets that belt, who's he beating? Right. Who's going to lay down for him? Who's going to put him situation. Over? Yeah, right. Exactly that. Who's going to put him over? Whose spots he taking on TV? Whose slots is he taking? Maybe it's a bit easier if he's in the Roman Raw thing because Roman's not around so much and Punk and Cody have been exiled to SmackDown. But it's like, it's all them things. Like, whose spot, whose title, are you really going to invest in this person or are you not? Is it because of the hierarchy of how things work in WWE in that system? Are you going to be reliant on picking up people from elsewhere? And that's a really big question right now because that's where they're looking. Why are they looking that way? Because they can't get these people to do anything that they wish them to do in that way and to elevate others. Because obviously they're going to panic about their spots because you don't want to go down into that next group. You go down to the next group, you find yourself in the Sheamus New Day situation. You are only valuable as long as you are in that top drawing group now. It's a massively high pressure scenario. This has always been a real thing, but it's never been quite this much. And that difference is gonna get larger. We're going to see a much, much greater difference between people in the mid card and pay and everything else and offers than we are going to see people in the main event. So it's only going to get greater. So the fighting and the power struggles, they've been bad already, but they're only going to get worse. And it's like, how do you alleviate that? And you need to do something because otherwise you're going to end up seeing more and more of your kind of the metrics that's like going to struggle. And at the moment, financially, has no effect. But again, they're servicing a debt when it comes to TKO. They're servicing, having to have the shareholders, having to have increased revenue year over year over year. And they're looking at like 3 Saudi shows this year. Where does that stop? Is that the line? Will that be around forever? So wrestling is cyclic. the way that they have to operate isn't. We're now at the point where you need to do something different. You need to do something that infuses kind of energy and enthusiasm into what you're doing. And the only way you're going to do that is by changing the people at the top. And yet there's a giant fucking brick wall preventing anyone from going there. And it feels like the only way they're going to go over it is they can acquire someone to help these people rise up elsewhere. Like, they're literally going to have to get, excuse me, people from outside to elevate these other people on their roster who are coming through from NXT or upwards. You know, the Obers, the Tricks, you know, those sort of people. The Bron Breakker, who now just looks like his eyes are like glazed over face. You know, he doesn't look like he cares. Can't blame him. But you're going to have to do that because they're not going to get anywhere with what they've got. And you can hold on for these things so long, and you can play the nostalgia, you know. But if your company has gone from being mega successful from promoting what you are now, as they were a few years ago, these are our stars. This is happening now. We are making moments, if that's what you're into, quote unquote, right? And you've gone back to here's 2011 Money in the Bank CM Punk, and here's 2013-14 Shield. Minus the guy in AEW that we don't speak about. Like,
it
that's
doesn't
crazy.
look good for them.
No, they got to fix it. They got to do something different. And whether they can or not is, we'll see. But it's like they have to do something different because there's nothing in the well. You know, what you will do now is you can stick to the same people, you can hang on to them, you know, and all you're going to get is less and less results.
It is funny that they've come up with this new pay thing and this new, you know, we'll just cut you even after we offer you a contract. And we're only going to, you know, keep our big money offers for our highest talent. And it's this new thing they've come up with. And it's give it, like you said, it gives the number one guys less of a reason, you know, to put over a younger guy than they've ever had before, which is already something that, you know, and this happens in every wrestling promotion. Like, if you're paying attention, you can see who's losing to who and why. You know, we could talk about this at AEW too. You know, you lose the elite, who's putting people over? Like, some of those guys, and so loses. Like, sure, they do lose, but who are they losing to? You know, it's not a question of who they lose it to. It's who are they losing to? When are they losing? That kind of stuff. And I think
and it's also a question
dangerous.
I lose one, you lose one when no one gets over.
Right.
So the person who was already in the strongest spot stays over.
Right.
And that's the difference. There's too much of that. Like, sometimes people just have to win, and you have to work out how to work around that and how to make that work without, you know, while dealing with these egos. But that's what it is. Yeah. All right, so that was Monday. So we're working chronologically today.
Yes, chronologically today. So then we had Wednesday. We had AEW Beach Break from St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida. Scientology's motherland. Watching that show and Excalibur, like all the little ad reads, it made me think of that line from 30 Rock where Liz Lemon asked Jack Donaghy why he's going to Miami, and he goes, "Why does anyone go to Miami? Ass and the burgeoning art scene." It was like, yeah, why does anybody go to Clearwater? Ass and the burgeoning art scene. But yeah, we had Beach Break from another one of these spectacular non-traditional wrestling locations in an outdoor arena. The Tunnel Talk ladies were discussing this morning that they felt very comfortable being in an outdoor, that they were watching a show from an outdoor arena in Florida. And I can't say that I disagree with it. It was like 103 degrees, which Kenny talked about in his opening promo. But we had Kenny Omega and a title match with MJF that had been long rumored for a pay-per-view called Redemption, which I'm not sure what's going to be redeemed at this pay-per-view now. But Kenny did beat MJF in a pretty spectacular main event. Kenny, again, winning a title on a television show, which was kind of awesome. And yeah, now Kenny is, as they say, the presumed defendant. The presumed defendant. What the fuck is wrong with me today? The presumed guy
he made it sound like he's going to court.
I know, I do. The presumed dude who's going to lose to Ospreay at All In is basically.
Such a harsh description.
At least he's not losing a court case to Ospreay. Oh my God, he's not the defendant there. Good God, Sarah. I'm just.
Oh, no. He's going to be AEW World Champion for All In. Let's be nice to him, right?
Yes, let's be nice.
AEW Men's World Champion.
He's going to be the Men's World Champion for All In.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This was fun. You could kind of see it coming, but I thought it was well done. Beach Break as a whole was a good show. It was like very wrestling heavy. They had Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher beat Takeshita for the international title. They had Ospreay and Mox versus the Workhorsemen. They had a spectacular casino battle royale where Willow Nightingale came back and won that. So she will be facing Tekla. Tekla with a very Tony Storm-esque performance on commentary. Love that woman.
So good.
Fucking love that woman. This is one of those things where, like, I'm so glad that they've hired more women. They've given more women opportunities. I also want to take a second, because I was watching this match and I was like, can we talk for a second about Black excellence and about Black women excellence? Like, you looked at that and you had Mercedes, you had Willow, you had Athena, you had Maya World, all of these women who have good to great wrestling, tremendous personalities. They've all gotten over. Like, I just want to say, like, that's one of the things people complain a lot about the AEW women's division. And a lot of these complaints are valid. And I don't want to diminish those. A lot of the complaints are valid. A lot of them are structural. They're based around how it's booked. But one of the things I've always appreciated about AEW women's division is that there's a lot of different women with a lot of different gimmicks and a lot of different styles and a lot of different types of bodies. And they are just out there doing their shit. And I fucking love them for it. So the women's division was a great casino battle royal. It just a lot of excellent Black women wrestlers that I want to give a shout out to, but I'm going off topic here.
No, we should probably talk a little bit about that, because it's like, I thought that you could really start to see that coming through in the Casino Gauntlet where they did it All In last year.
Yes,
where actually it felt like they had so much more depth and story in that one than they did with the men's.
They did the men's. Yes,
it was
we talked about that.
Yeah, so it was like that's where it really kind of, they have the depth here. It's not a depth issue.
No,
in terms of the time that they get especially when like Mercedes or Tony aren't around, or like promos, all the other things that we speak about when it comes to the issues or the things that frustrate people around like the women's division booking at AEW. Like, they have the depth, they have enough of the pieces now in a way that they did not have at the start.
No,
where they were having to bring one person in after another to face Shida because you didn't have enough challenges for her during
even 2021. They didn't have the depth that they have now. They weren't even close to it.
No, and they've done a lot of that from bringing in people from the independents or from Japan, or it's not all been just ex-WWE hires, which I think people maybe have expected when a few years back, after they brought in Paige. I can't remember what was she called in Saraya.
Saraya.
Oh my god, I've forgotten that.
Jeez, how did you forget that?
I don't know.
She forgot that.
Yeah, but there was that tendency to think that would have to be where people kind of came from in order to be stars, quote unquote, on AEW TV. And they have done a really good job of kind of recruitment and bringing people through. And yeah, Tekla is, she's been given an opportunity to talk, and I think that's the big difference. Like, I have no issues with her in ring. I think she'll still develop in that way, but when she gets that opportunity to talk and to connect, and it's clear that there really is something there. And I thought that she was the highlight of the Forbidden Door build, of anybody's build of Forbidden Door, to be honest. I thought she was and she was working really very much without anybody on the other side for a lot of that, and until she went to Japan with to do the angle in Stardom. I'm pretty sure, hint, she'll be doing more work in Stardom over the next year with that. So that's going to be an ongoing thing. But yeah, I thought she was fantastic in that, and yeah, she was amazing on here. She was just entertainment. Like, commentary is hard, right? That's not an easy thing to do. We see people struggle with that stuff, and sometimes
she wasn't perfect. She was definitely awkward in moments, but that doesn't mean that you're not good.
No, but she has enough, right? She has just enough connection. And it's to the point where, like, obviously they had this Mercedes Willow match lined up for All In for some time. And they flipped how they've done it, right? Because of the injury to Willow. It kind of made it weird because obviously they did the TBS thing and she comes back like a week later and you're just like, what's going on? And now you're kind of having to make it about like her redemption rather than Mercedes. And then you get to a situation, okay, so if Willow beats Tekla, then you're going to have her like a month and then Mercedes is going to beat her. Whereas if that's the other way around, it probably works better because it gives Mercedes like more things to go crazy over. Like, I finally got this thing I've always wanted and my redemption, and then it's like taken away from me. Like, you could see more to that story than the other way around. It feels like a bit more of a hit to Willow. I don't know, but it almost is at that point where you're like people will look at it and say like, why do you want to take it off Tekla? Like she's bringing something different to this, a different energy. And
she's like a female dirtbag in a way that there were people who were like, oh, she was just doing Toni Storm. I'm like, she wasn't fucking doing Toni Storm. She wasn't. No. Those are two very different women with very different characters.
And that's that thing that people do, isn't it? Because it's that thing like all women are the same, right? Like it's the same
we all
when
have the same opinion.
Yeah, we all have the same opinion. Like every female led podcast is a Hangman podcast. I think Tunnel Talk are going to stick someone in a conglomeration backpack if that continues.
But the fact that people can't differentiate between your opinion and my opinion, and you're British and you're fucking not. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, I get it if we all have the same voice and you and I were both fucking Long Islanders, or I was all out there with a hello, doing well. Like, but we're not. So
but it's the same thing, isn't it? But they literally say, so, because she, may have made comments that were similar, like in some nature to what Toni did. Oh, she must be the same as Toni Storm. She's a very different fucking character, and you would not do that the other way around. But it's like,
well, that's part of it. It's also too where it's like not all of these women are perfect, right? And I think you can look across the board and be like, what a great depth of this women's division. They're not all spectacular, but you also look at the men's division and they're not all spectacular either. It's not like Kevin Knight's out there cutting these unbelievable promos. Like everybody has space to up their game. And I'm not trying to pick on Kevin Knight, but you know what I mean? Like it shouldn't we should be continuing to give people the opportunity to grow, because you're not going to be, if you don't, you're not going to be surprised by somebody like a Tekla who it feels like came out of nowhere. Although I realize that's probably just me and my non-stardom. But I feel like even the Stardom guys
I don't think
are like
Stardom were massively like.
No, we're like, wow,
she was
Tekla.
not popular with her. No, like
I never more talking about Julia, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, and when Tekla came over, there was a lot of kind of resentment towards different Stardom fans, that we've encountered in the West. So it's like,
because she did get banned from Japan.
Everybody gets banned from Japan now.
I wish that T-shirt was better. Like, I don't want to wear a T-shirt. I would wear a banned from Japan T-shirt. I just don't want to wear one with somebody's face on it, because I feel like I don't know. It's hard to do that in the real world, but that band from Japan shit was spectacular. We got to see the Brawling Birds. They're back to doing some more promos, which I was happy to see Alex Windsor in a non-Osprey situation, quite honestly.
Yep.
Just get her back in the fucking ring. Like, let's go. And it was good to see Jamie Hayter. I just feel like the women's division in general is in a good place, and it could always be improved, but I never want us to take for granted the fact that, we have so many incredibly engaging women who are so different and bring different things to AEW.
And it's not to not push for progress, right? Because
correct.
They can always do so much more than what they can.
Yes.
Exactly, right? But I was listening to, I always talk about this one at the moment, but it's just like football World Cup, isn't it? I was listening to the US Women's National Team coach Emma Hayes interview a few weeks ago, and she was talking about all the things that she wants to change, and she was talking about looking at things like injury concerns and how because women's bodies are completely different, how you can change like more of the kind of the things that they use when they play and all that sort of thing, and football, and you need to look at the size of the pitches. And someone stopped her and said, Emma, like, these are great, but we need to get the fundamentals right first. And that's kind of how it feels with this. It's like we're still at a point where we want all these other things, and these things that we should actually have by now. We're actually working from the past, really, but you've still got to get all the fundamentals right first. You've still got to get them all into these positions, and it's a slow moving process, because it's not just working with the wrestling companies. You've got to work around TV kind of stations and that sort of thing. You've got to work around general kind of perception, and it's hard to overcome that. Look at the sports that have managed to overcome that, who have made a big splash, have done it either through team success. So when we look at women's football here, it's been like the Lionesses and that sort of thing, because they were hugely successful. It managed to break a barrier that would have taken probably decades to do. And you look at like the WNBA, like Caitlin Clark's success and kind of popularity has allowed that sport to accelerate its development in a way that it couldn't do otherwise. And it was the same with the UFC, like Ronda Rousey, and now they're regressing. They're not putting women's fights on the shows this year practically, or no one in headline spots. The biggest women's fight this year hasn't been on UFC, for mixed martial arts. So it's like it's hard to do it unless you have that thing in that position, and that's why like Mercedes coming back in gives them a lot more time, a lot more presence. And you would like it to happen when Mercedes is not there or Toni Storm is not there, but we're not in that position yet. So we need to take what we have here. You still need to mold a lot of these people still. And, to me, that's always important. I love that part of the journey. I was talking to someone in Japan this morning about it, actually, in terms of like New Japan. But for me, I always love watching people develop into something. That's something I get great enjoyment out of. I always have. And it's like, I wish more people would take more enjoyment in that rather than expecting everybody to be on a certain level now, because these are the things you enjoy. Once you get to that top point, we just talked about in WWE, you're going to see the same thing over and over again. So actually watching them try, fail, quirkiness, figure themselves out, figure out their look, figure out how they're going to speak, develop in the ring, figure out build relationships and programs and feuds and things that you can take forward. They're all the things that you want to do. And yes, we need more focus on that division. I think there's been times where it's been really, really poor this year. The build to Double or Nothing was just bollocks, quite frankly. But it's like, we also need to stand back sometimes and recognize that there is progress and there is things, there are some fantastic wrestlers in this company now that we see on a weekly basis that we would not have seen 5 years ago.
Nope.
So it's always, I think the tendency is always to be like what we haven't got. And sometimes we do need to look at it the other way. But yeah, it's that hard balance between racing for progress and being able to recognise something's great. And that all started because Tekla was fucking great on commentary.
It just was really enjoyable. I don't know. She was entertaining, and that's like, honestly, with wrestling, sometimes you just fucking want to be entertained, and Tekla entertains me. Thank you. And it's not you. You didn't.
No. But yeah, and so I think it's an interesting one to see how things turn out for her for All In. I think there'll be an expectation that she needs to have something big. You're teasing this Stardom thing that leaves you some windows open. Obviously, they've got their 5-star Grand Prix happening upcoming as well, so that may limit your options. I think people speculate around the prospect of a Kairi Sane coming in, even though she's been very hit and miss the last time she was on the Indies, but she'll be available, and obviously that's someone Kenny's always wanted there. Would be an easy one to do there. So we'll see, but it's like they'll want to see a payoff for her in some way if she does drop the title to Willow at Redemption because of the work that she's put in. But it set her up nicely. She's set up nicely now going forward. It's one of them things when you get the opportunity to do this sort of thing and you're not perhaps going to be focused on in the same way of like a Mercedes and Tony. It's about grasping that opportunity sometimes.
Yeah.
And not everyone is always in a position to do that. There's lots of other factors going into it, but I think she's been able to grasp that in a way that we probably didn't expect her to when she did pick up the belt, which is awesome. Anyway, yeah. So where else are we for a beach break? Yeah, Takeshita drops his belt because, of course, he did. He was losing to Sushi on Saturday. So
it's one of the things where I was like, like, part of me with this was the other thing I was a little bit not annoyed about, but I'm also like, why didn't those guys open the fucking show? Like, I thought Ciampa versus Jericho was good. I have no complaints with it. I've enjoyed Ciampa, but why are they opening the fucking show? Why isn't fucking Takeshita and Fletcher opening the show? I don't know. Like, that was kind of a, like, maybe they'd give him more time or whatever. I get it. But it was just something that, like, when you talk about status quo, right? Yep. It's like we still have Jericho opening TV shows. And again, I'm not down on Jericho. I think he's serving a decent role at this point. I don't, he's been largely fine since he came back, but I don't know. You got to give guys spots and opportunities.
But look at it, 158, right? 158 was Jericho, Moxley, Omega, MJF. Right? Yep. Quarter 1, quarter 5, quarter 8, the ones that actually matter. People say it doesn't matter where you are on the shows. It's like, go and have a look at where certain people have the segment each week. It absolutely does matter. They look at that stuff. So it's like, you could have picked any year in AEW's history and you could have had 158 like that.
Yep.
And absolutely. That's the same thing. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier. That's where you have to be careful around stagnation. So if you really, and this is a thing that they're going to have to figure out going into next year, looking at the option year and stuff. And I think when we talk about Paige later, there's a kind of sneaky play when you think about it when they're doing this, is that they're going to, I don't know how many chances they're going to give to people to go into like the key slots going into next year. Because you're going to be wanting everything every week. There's a thing about, it'll feel like not taking as many risks, which is kind of funny with their big story for next year, but it's like, you don't want to take as many risks with people that are unproven or people that are on their way, as you possibly would otherwise, because you know that you're going to have that constant pressure on you. And the fact that Jericho's come back in and opens the show quite a fair bit is not a great thing, especially on this week. But it is what it is. Same when they use like Mick Foley in the middle on that awful Don Callis family segment. I'm sorry.
Oh God, I don't care about I don't know. I'm like, why do I have to hear about Mick Foley's dogs? Like,
yeah, but that's just the sort of thing where it's like,
that's my dead dog.
That's not a great usage. Like, you can find better usages for him, and the whole thing was just like, But no, and then obviously, but the highlight of the show was the main event. So Kenny Omega picking up the AEW Men's World Title, and I think they did a great job of doing the fast build on this one, right? So this match was for redemption. We can kind of talk about the timeline and stuff now after we talk about how it had happened, and this was not something that was planned like a year in advance. Let's just get it out of the way, because I've heard that quite a lot this week, and it absolutely was not. This was something that came together in the spring. Kenny was originally set to be a defense, and that's it, like for MJF. He was not, like, this wasn't happening. This is something he fought for, he pushed for. You know, everyone says that he doesn't advocate for himself enough. Well, he did this time, and he's spoken about it, and I feel like I'm having lines thrown at me sometimes, but he very much said it's, you know, it's now or never this year. You know, this needs to be, he wanted the stadium main event. If you're going to do it in AEW, everything that's happened with his, you know, his body and everything else, it's like, it's this year, it's not. And it's clearly a match that he wants. It's clearly a match that Will Ospreay wants. You know, you don't have to take my word for it. Fightful will report it every 3 weeks, which is greatly amusing me. Like this, and it's a singles match that they want. They don't want a triple threat. They don't want anything else. They want a singles match. And when this kind of come around, you know, around Dynasty, there was a push for Kenny to pick the belt up there. That's why the you know, the quarter hour numbers from the his match with Swerve Strickland in Minneapolis got leaked. It didn't happen, but instead we had a compromise, and that's becoming more and more common in AEW in recent years. It's not the same company that it was in 2019 to 21. It's a company of normal wrestling politics now, with some people having more control than others, and that leads to compromises. And this was a compromise. So the idea was, you know, you do the match at Dynasty, they changed the finish. The original finish would have involved Swerve Strickland involvement, and that would have led to a third Swerve Kenny match at Double or Nothing. Obviously, that gets pulled. And instead, you do this thing where you set it up for redemption. And you put redemption in July. It allows Max to have his big kind of hometown win at Double or Nothing in New York.
He gets to be a 3-time champion.
Yep. And you know, you squish the Derby thing in there that he wanted to do, and then you get redemption. The idea of redemption was it's in Montreal. Is that's the place where Kenny had his last match before diverticulitis. I can't never say that. But so there's a symbolicist to it. It's back in Canada, obviously, as well, and you give enough time between it, so it looks like Max has had some sort of a run in between. So this was moved up. This match was for redemption. They started teasing it for redemption. It's not like just like news sites saying it. It's not just like, you know, Rich reported it first. It's not like, and then everyone else afterwards. It's not like they were just like playing on it, and that's what stirred everyone up to think it was redemption. No, it was booked for redemption, and it was moved up to TV, as Dave reported this week, by Max's call. And in terms of generating a TV number, did very well for viewership. I probably be slightly disappointed at the demos, but it is what it is. And it looked fantastic being in that venue. And they tied it in nicely. So what they did with the kayfabe, which I thought was good, was they tied a lot of things in nicely over the course of that week. So it was the same stipulation. It was always going to be like him doing the steps, the Cody and Hangman steps. That was always what they were leading to. That was why it was getting mentioned. And then they had to tie in other things as well. So they tied in the fact they knew the Bucks weren't going to be there. So they tied that in because they were on their normal annual break, I think, around this time of year. And then they tied in as well the stuff from the previous time he won the title. And it works quite well because you've got Ospreay, who is relying on the Death Riders, right? He's relying on these people that, you know, kill baby faces. And what did he say at the press conference after Forbidden Door? He's like, it's okay, they do some bad things, but they helped me. And I was like, that's the most wrestling thing ever.
It's the most white guy thing ever. Please, they do bad things, but I my taxes are lower, so I have to keep voting for them.
Exactly, right. But that's what he said. He was like, you know, they might do bad things, but it's like, but they help me, so it's okay. And I'm like, so, but you have him in this kind of ideological kind of tweener grey area in some ways at the moment with this, and then you have Kenny, who is looking at him saying, I don't want you to basically make the same mistakes that I did. And he's referring back to, you know, when he won his first and only at that time AEW Men's World title from Jon Moxley in December. What event was that one?
Winter is coming.
Winter's coming. Oh my God, I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, you are losing your mind.
I am. Jesus. Winter is coming, you know, in 2020 with the Don Callis thing, and I'm running off to TNA, and it was like a real iconic kind of finish to that show. But the idea is they wrap that in the kayfabe and they say, okay, that's so I don't want to win that way either, and I don't want to be the example to him because he's struggling in between, and like that he's the Osprey's kind of got the good and bad angel thing going on, but obviously Omega's things is not completely clear because he wants things for himself too. But it's like, yeah, so I think they played that all in well. I really like the segment they did with MJF and Osprey just as a diversion. So I think they'll come back to it post All In. But they did a great job of it, everyone making everybody think that Max was going to win. And then when they did the match, I thought the structure was so much better than Dynasty. Oh my God. Yeah. The structure at Dynasty was a mess. I think sometimes the probably biggest criticism of Max matches in terms of the way he structures them is he tries to throw too much in, right? I think the biggest example was that Will Ospreay hour-long match that was just ridiculous. But it's like, that's probably the biggest criticism of him in terms of in-ring is how he has to have every single thing in there. It's like a focus, right? And especially like the Dynasty one, because you did all that to then do the cheap finish. It's like, don't go 35 minutes to do a cheap finish. So on this one, it was much more concise. They kept it to the right kind of layout in terms of Kenny getting some kind of good offense early, and then you turn it around because Max is younger, he's stronger, he's this sort of things. So you can play into that age factor in the right way, and then you come out into the finish, and you do the thing with the ring, so they've been building that up. Max has been building it up for months, and obviously Ospreay does that bit, and then you do he refuses the low blow shot, so you call back to that 2020 thing, and then you do the kind of the one count, like the one count. And the thing with the one count is like, this is why Kenny can do this and everyone else, because so many other people done it. And we've seen it obviously in a pay-per-view match just last month. They do the one count and it's just everyone's up again, right?
Right.
And they do it as like a way to spur the crowd, right? It's the same with the fighting spirit thing in Japan. And sometimes you do a fighting spirit thing and then it straight away it leads to the finish. Fine. But at the most of the time it's being used as like this thing to catch the crowd. And to me, it's like it's a cheap way of doing it. And I know a lot of people probably won't agree with this, but it's a cheap way of doing it. It's just like you using this as a cheap spot to get that emotion from investment from the crowd that you haven't been able to do another way. I think there's other ways you can do it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it don't, but I think it's over-relied upon. But the way that he does it, and the way that he did it in 2020 with the tag match with the Bucks and Hangman, is Kenny does it where it's like all hope is gone. Like you literally feel like that's it, it's done. And you have that drop in emotion where you're not just going, oh, what's the next move? Oh, look, like you're going, fuck's sake, like it's over. And then he does it. And it's like, it's the timing of it and the placement of it that just makes it work perfectly. Because then he shoots up, like, okay, you get a little bit of NXT face off Will and off Max, who does his little head
shake.
It
was off. The freaking jowls trembling was just I don't know.
It's not for
I get
me,
that some people like it, but I don't care for it. It was too much.
Yeah, it was. But it's like, but the placement of it is what makes that work with the crowd. Because then you get that natural, like, whoosh pickup, and then it's in. Then it's done. That's where it should be used most. I think that was good with that. But yeah, and obviously they so it was a very, very clean finish. I like Will being the guy with the ring. I know everyone speculated it would be Paige, but if you're not saying of a Paige Max match and there's no reason to, then it shouldn't be.
Right.
But keeps the focus on Omega, because I don't like. It's one of those things. What I found really interesting this week, and I don't know about you, is listening to people who have been really invested in Omega for like the last decade, and then comparing it to people who have only really watched him in AEW. And there's a difference, right? So there are people who are absolutely ecstatic because they got this moment, because it's taken so long for him to get back to here. And a lot of people probably thought it was never going to happen, especially after his illness. And then his uses since and everything else. And they just want to see it because they know that Kenny Omega on top. They know what that looks like. They know that, in those stadium environments, everyone jokes about Tokyo Dome. There's no one else like him. And it's like, it means something to them. And I know I've had this kind of cross correspondence where you listen to people who, I was listening to Tom Talk this morning and like talking about it, and it made me think. And it's like, who are kind of disappointed, but kind of maybe wanted more in the build up to this. Being that, they've known about this for months, they had this planned out since April, like March, April time. So it's like, why is it that he was then away for a month? He come back in a daft, however many men at Double or Nothing. Then he was away again. Then he comes back on a Collision, and they do the Zack thing. Promos aren't exactly inspiring, and then they rush the kind of the finish. Where do you kind of sit on the spectrum of those things?
I have been thinking about this a lot the last couple days because I have definitely. I know there are people that are really enjoying the men's singles title scene right now and are like, oh my God, like I see these tweets where people are like, this is incredible, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I'm not there. And I'm kind of trying to figure it out because I feel like there are a lot of similar pieces to last year's build to All In, right? And in terms of like, you have multiple men's singles main eventers sort of circulating this, orbiting this storyline, engaging with different people, right? Like, and part of me is like, okay, I'm always, look, we're a subjective podcast on our opinions because every podcast is subjective. And if somebody is like, I'm totally objective, they're full of shit. Like, I don't know. I always kind of cracks me up when people like complain about like, oh, they only said that because they like X. Well, yeah, no shit. I like X. Like, what the fuck?
Have you heard the new one?
Like X.
Have you heard the new one? Have you heard the new one? The new one is We Hate John Moxley because Swerve hates John Moxley, even though those two are tight, and I follow Moxley for like 15 years now. That's the new one. Because we've never expressed hatred for tweeners and thinking that tweeners only get tweeners over, and we haven't just spent 30 minutes talking about WWE and their lack of clear, focused baby faces and heels being a key reason for their decline. No? Okay. Anyway, yeah, that's the latest one. I can't keep up. I have to keep up with what we supposedly think.
I can't be bothered.
No.
Look, I like what I like, and I'm going to be honest with you about when like this personally appeals to me, or like this person is my favorite wrestler. Do I like mediocre Orange Cassidy matches because he's my favorite wrestler? Fuck yeah, I do. I'm not going to apologize for it. But and so part of me, like, while I'm engaging with this, part of me is like, some of this doesn't just boil down to that I like Swerve and Hangman as characters more than I like Kenny and MJF. Right? Because the other two people hanging around are Ospreay and Mox, and they were also hanging around the same storyline last year. And I'm kind of like debating it. I don't think I can rule that out completely as a reason. Like, I don't think it's the full reason, but I don't think I can rule it out completely. So like with that stated there, that like maybe that's part of where my not displeasure, but partial dislike comes from. I think some of it for me with this has been how kind of oddly set up it is. And I don't, right? So you would say that in a traditional wrestling storyline, if Ospreay is the guy that you're having come into All In to win this big, and it's supposed to be set up as a big moment, and it's supposed to be like an achievement, then ideally he has an obstacle to overcome, right? Yep. And I don't think that's the only type of storyline you have to do. I think you could set up, like, if you want to set up Kenny and Ospreay, but even that, you'd argue that's an obstacle to overcome, right? Like, he's never beaten Kenny, or he's only beaten Kenny once. You could, this is like a dream match or whatever. You could set it up on there. So if there's no obstacle to overcome, right? Because, what are Ospreay's obstacles? So that, as they've been stated to us so far, he had a neck injury. The Death Riders cured him.
Yeah, okay. They got the agency out of that. Yep.
They got the agency out of that. He didn't cure his own neck injury. Yep. He has never indicated that he felt like he wasn't somebody who could get over the finish line. And you think a natural way to do it would be like, okay, I lost against Swerve at Forbidden Door when I went up for the title. I lost against Hangman at Double or Nothing when I went for the Owen. Like, you'd think there'd be a way that he could argue that he doesn't know how to pull the trigger in a big moment, right? Like, maybe that would be a difficult argument, but you could make that argument, and then you could say, well, the Death Riders are there to help him do that. But that hasn't really been, you could argue that that's the subtext, but it hasn't been text at all. There's nothing.
They did part of that with the Swerve thing. But the problem is that, again, and like, I know that the finish, like with the Death Riders coming out, was like Strickland's idea. But I just thought that was a mistake, because if you're having him like hit the Tiger Driver 91, which they've used since, so I don't believe this.
Right.
Oh, they haven't used it. But they had it like, oh, he's neck strong and stuff, where, he takes a house call and he doesn't respond to it. And it's like, but again, you gave them that agency because they got it from them. And it's like, so if you're going to do these things where he overcomes that, and he's not even mentioned, like, obviously the Page thing at all, round like that, other than where they included it in that promo, but it was not about him overcoming, like, losing the Owen last year sort of thing. It's become about all these things, but all the agency in it goes to the Death Riders. Like, he's not overcoming these things himself on his own, And you contradicted that with Kenny going, "I'm doing this by myself and I'm finishing the race." And it's like, which babyface are you supposed to be cheering for?
Well, that's just it. Like, Ospreay's not, like, you could then argue, okay, well, the Death Riders have helped him change his style. Like, but they haven't. Ospreay's not really wrestling any significantly differently than he did before. So, like, I think part of the challenge for this is Ospreay came in and was immediately presented as a top guy, even though he didn't have a belt or a title. You know, he won the international title at one point, right? Yeah. But, like, you know, he's always was presented as a top guy. And what's odd is that I feel like he's less of a top guy now than he's ever been in some ways. And I don't know why I feel that. And again, I like I said, all of this is subjective. I appreciate that people may disagree with me and that they don't see or feel this. And I totally get it if they don't. Like, I'm just trying to work through what my own feelings about this storyline are. And I don't even think that this storyline necessarily needed to have Ospreay as like the main protagonist. Like, if you think that this is a weakness of his and that he's not somebody who can lead a narrative like this, there's definitely things they certainly could have done to have made it like more Moxley focused in some ways. The other thing that's making me crazy is the thing that Jay White very smartly brought up when he came back, which is last year everybody was preoccupied with the Death Riders and getting rid of them, and now nobody gives a fuck. And they're essentially the same group that they were last year at this time. Literally nothing is different other than that Moxley has a different title and they're fighting faces and they're fighting heels sometimes, right? And like I think that
you lessen everything that happened last year by doing that.
Right. And you lessen everything that happens this year because it's like, well, if that happened last year and nothing changed, then whatever they do this year, really nothing's going to change. Like, and I understand it, right? I get that, like, you know, Moxley likes working with certain guys and like this makes him happy and like this is what he wants to do. But I just feel like you can't, to me, it was like a narrative mistake to have this defeat of this like huge heel unit be this enormous moment. And then the next year, everything is exactly the same, except they're kind of tweeners. And I think that's part of why I feel like this isn't working quite as well for me. And, you know, I think part of me sometimes feels like people like wrestling storylines where they can't necessarily fully tell what the outcome is. Like you said, but there's still people who are thinking and arguing that the all-in match should be a multi-man because MJF has done such a good job, he deserves it or something, like it's a participation trophy or whatever. I don't know. I think Kenny did a better job at the end towards the, like you said, I think it kind of tied things together a little bit better, but I still can't say that, like, you know, I wasn't disappointed in the fact that, like, if this is the plan from April, why was this guy home for so much of the time? Like, why weren't you lining up other, you know, contenders for him? I still stand by my
contenders did they have?
Well,
seriously, like, when I look at it, right, this is the thing I looked at, was that you brought in Zach to do the number one contendership role, basically, because who else did you have him to beat? You know, you're taking Page off the board, so you don't have him. Strickland was there for Ospreay, and then you left yourselves with nobody.
He can't beat fucking Copeland? That would have been a huge match.
No, that
I don't think I would have been interested in that, but I think there's other people that would have been.
This is the thing. So you're talking about the way that they're building people up, but it's like to a point, right? There's a ceiling somewhat, because then when they need people to put people over, this is the thing, they've got the same problem. They have the same problem, it's just different. Like, we just don't acknowledge it as much.
No. And we don't talk about it. It doesn't get talked about.
No. And especially, you know, Strickland's lost a lot in the last year. I don't think that's going to be able to continue. Andrade's been filling that role, but now he's turned face. He needs to start winning again. And then, you know, Page is now out of that equation. He can't be the guy that feeds people into the main event anymore. So you're now going to have to look at it. You know, you're going to bring Jay White and put him straight into that spot. You know, it's difficult. And that's part of the issue, isn't it? For me, it's different in terms of structure. So the structure issues for me with this, and it's, as I mentioned previously, is that you've made Kenny more of a babyface in his journey than you've made Ospreay. And
yes, Kenny's had to overcome things. He's had to overcome his self-doubt. He's had to overcome his diverticulitis. He certainly had to overcome more than Ospreay, who just showed up and won. Like, with the Death Riders helped him. Like, I agree with you on that one, absolutely.
And I think that's a problem in some ways, depending how you're going to play this. But if you want him to be the big babyface, the top babyface, this is the thing. So at the moment, with the way the structure is, Kenny is the top babyface, and he will be the top babyface going through Redemption. He'll be the top babyface going through Grand Slam Mexico, especially because they've never seen him in Mexico with AEW before, because obviously he was advertised last year and then pulled. I think they might do something similar this year with someone else. It's quite fun, isn't it? So daft. But it's like, you're going to have that, right? So he is going to be the top babyface through the start of August. And then you're going to get to a point where that flips. And you're going to do this thing, and it is going to be that, has that kind of big match feel. You know, it's why that match was seen as the biggest possible match. Kenny is probably still the biggest ticket guy, like, with history in the UK. It's like, okay, yeah, it works. but you have to build him up to it, because at the end of the day, we've had 3 years now. He came in the first year. He said he didn't want to win the belt the first year. You know, when everyone was saying he needs to win now, Ospreay was the biggest proponent of, I do not want to win the belt this year.
Right. And we praised him for that, and we thought it was the right call.
Yeah, and everybody told us we hated Will Ospreay for saying it.
Right.
It's like, it's fucking
you only
cool.
want us still to this day.
Yes. We'll see if I keep that. I've got an idea for you. I'll come out. We'll have a chat later. We'll show everyone how much we hate Will Ospreay. I've got an idea.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
It'd be great. Anyway, but yeah, he made that call, right? And he was right in a way, because he saw that, like, if you come in and you just win straight away, like, and you come in over the top of everybody, like, you're going to struggle for have longevity as a babyface. And maybe it would have worked for a little bit. You know, you look at the Cody Rhodes syndrome, isn't it, right? That he came in like that. And now you look how flat he is. And it's about longevity for these people. It's not about the next 1 year, 2 year. You're starting to think 3 or 5 years, because that's how long your deals are. And he's at that age where it's this next deal that he's massive deal, right? The same way, like, we'll talk about someone later who's obviously looking at his next deal in the same way. So it's like, you do that. See, but the first year, you know, there was a choice in a way. They gave you it Forbidden Door between him and Swerve, and the crowd picked Swerve, right?
Yeah.
Last year, similar thing. You had the choice. The crowd picked Hangman. Yeah, the numbers picked Hangman. That's how it was. It's like, so you're now in this third year where it needs to be this guy, and you're kind of making the crowd pick again. This is kind of the scenario that I'm confused by, in a way that they've managed to get themselves into, where you're making him pick against the other babyface, and that babyface is so fresh in that position that you know that not everybody's going to pick Ospreay. And if you're going to make this guy into the top babyface, being that you just kind of hampered your previous top babyface for the next couple of years, it's like, you'd think that you'd go all in on that, and they haven't. And they haven't done it in a lot of ways. So there are differences to last year, because I don't think things are quite as interconnected. You know, it was very clean cut in terms of last year. It felt very planned out. There wasn't some of this wishy-washy stuff. You know, even like the match structure, I was really frustrated watching the Workhorseman match. Not because it was the Workhorseman. I know I've heard everything. It's 5 minutes. Oh, Jesus Christ. There was bigger structural issues in that fact that Moxley was positioned as the bigger guy coming out.
Yep.
Will is taking the offense. If he's just turned into a killer at Forbidden Door, right? If that's your story, you've told this thing with Strickland, he's turned into this killer now. He's the finished machine. This is what the Death Riders have created. You know, Frankenstein's monster, shot face, rah. Then that has to then play out in the matches. And we're not playing that in the matches. He's the guy taking the fucking heat segments. And then Moxie's coming in clearing house, tapping out when he's bored. And then Moxie's taking the win. Like, these are really simple things that you just don't do. Like, and I get it in a way, because, you know, if you look at what Kenny's doing, I think the most likely, you know, opponent now for Kenny at Redemption is Moxley, right?
Well, yeah, especially after Mox gave that heel promo last night, shitting on Kenny on Collision.
Yeah, because, you know, it has to change every fucking week. It helps nobody. But that's my frustration with him. I love John Moxley. I always have enjoyed watching wrestling, but I'm frustrated with the tweener thing, because I think it just hurts everything. So we're now in a position where Ospreay has to break from this tweener thing way before All In now. Like, you can't do the Death Riders celebrating with him post, like, beating Kenny. Like, you can't do that. But I just think there's a lot of this that probably is solved if you switch that belt at Dynasty. Because if you switch that belt at Dynasty, Kenny gets that babyface kind of, what's the word? He gets that enthusiasm for this great new babyface champion then, right? And you can start burning that out. And if you want to turn him into doing something a little bit darker, you know, he's been doing the New Japan jackets and the cleaner hair, and we've kind of been noticing that and thinking, oh, is he going to go down that road? Like,
well, there's an
easy you have the time to do it then. you know?
There's an easy storyline there that makes a little bit more sense that isn't that much different than what we have, which involves the Death Riders making Ospreay more vicious, pushing that onto him. Instead of leaning into the face side of being tweeners, they lean into the heel side of being tweeners. And Kenny's, as a babyface starts by fighting against that. The two of them either team up against the Death Riders, or the Death Riders, it's in a singles match with Kenny that he beats him. And then, Kenny goes to a darker place. It becomes more heelish. And then it's not just about Ospreay having like a dream match to win the title when Wembley against Kenny. It's about him having to actually do something, right?
Yeah.
Like he has to slay a dragon. I mean, part of this is complicated by the fact that, Ospreay's already beaten Kenny in a big match. Can you do it without Don Callis' help? That you could have brought there's more layers into this than you have.
Yes.
And I feel like this is your Moxley problem, which again, and I say that acknowledging the fact that a lot of times he's one of the most enjoyable parts of the show for me. I don't say this and I dislike Moxley. I want him off TV. I think he's terrible. I don't think that at all. I just think he wants to be the antagonist, but not ever in a negative way. And he doesn't want to change or go away after he fails as the antagonist. And it's that stagnates everyone else's growth, right? Yeah. And it minimizes what your moments mean. Because if Hangman beating Moxley was this big, incredible moment, and then Moxley has not changed in any way, right? And you can go back years for this. Kyle O'Reilly beat Moxley and Moxley did not change in any way. Orange Cassidy beat Moxley and Moxley did not change in any way. There's very little that happens that affects him. And as a result, it impedes everyone else's journeys, and that's from a narrative sense. And I think it again starts to devalue what you're doing. And you get into some of that stuff that we talked about when it comes to WWE, where nothing you do is getting people excited, because even if they haven't seen this exact match, they've seen these people too much and they're kind of over it. And, and that's the part where I feel like it's a real Sophie's choice, because if a guy's doing good work and other people want to work with him and, the ratings are there, that's great. How do you argue taking him off TV? But it's always to some degree a ticking time bomb. I mean, the Wembley ticket sales are not good right now. And I think, you question whether or not if they'd been leading this up in the summer the whole way, if you had telegraphed more aggressively that Kenny was going to win, because you had people questioning that. Fucking last week, I was like, of course Kenny's fucking winning. What are we talking about here?
We've had it. I've literally said to people in our group chat, they're just setting this up and they're like, this TV is insane. If that's what they're doing, this TV is insane.
Right. The TV was fucking insane for this. So you wonder why you can't sell tickets, because people don't believe. And you talked about where, you see a lot of people being like, oh, they'll sell a bunch of tickets late. But this is a European UK audience that is not buying tickets in the same way that the Americans do.
I mean, look, they picked up this week, and they picked up for the combination
They did.
Yeah, and they picked up on a combination of, you did the change, right? And they ran a 50% off sale, which they've never ran, and it's running to the 21st now. It's been extended, so it's going to run 2 weeks. They've never ran anything like that. It's, all categories. I've never seen like that. And it's okay, so there were obviously people who were waiting for a lower price or were waiting to hear like that. Because you were never going to get this big kind of boost once Ospreay won the Owen, because that was baked in, right? Everybody knew.
Right. Everybody knew that Ospreay was going to win the Owen. No one was confused about that.
No. And I think to an extent, the expectation Mercedes going into the top women's match was probably there as well, especially once Tony was out. So I'm not that surprised that things didn't move there. And then obviously this week you've had the movement through the combination of the pricing and that. But it's so they'll be around 30K this week, and it's one of those things, right? It's a great number anywhere else. It's not a great number in Wembley.
No.
So it's great for a second company. It's that thing. It's like a paradox at the moment in the way that everybody talks about it. Yeah, it's because of red seats. You did this in Spurs and we don't even have to talk about it. But it's because of the red seats, and it's because of the numbers that you've done previously. Because when you've done one number
80-something, 70-something.
Yeah,
it's
what it is. But look, they want to look at. I think you're looking at between 40 and 42 should be their target, because they did 11,700 in 2024 in the last 6 weeks, which will be coming up this weekend. And last year they did. Where are we? Similar, very similar last year. And obviously last year's a bit different because that equates to 43% of attendance. They rescued that card in the last 6 weeks in terms of that number, compared to the year before where it was 42K to 53.9. So you're looking at that should be the kind of target point. They're going to get probably about 2,000 to 3,000 at a blue light, which is the emergency services kind of comps. So this year they've obviously chosen to now at this point to focus on how many people they can get into the building, as opposed to the gate or containing value for next time, right? So we got some questions on this, so I probably should answer them rather than me just wittering over
It's
them
a good
first.
spot, yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Gannon, our friend, asked, after AEW put a discount on a bunch of the all-in tickets, there's been a lot of movement on them. As we just talked about, AEW has repeatedly taught fans that if they wait, they'll probably get a bargain, so there's no incentive to buy early. Previously, the initial on-sale numbers have been described as incredibly important. Why doesn't AEW do more to entice customers into buying tickets early, e.g. on-sale discounts for previous customers, etc.?
Yeah, and then Prince of Ducks, I'm never calling him just Prince, he always has to be Prince of Ducks, added that, add to what Chris asked, were the all-in prices too high from the start? No, I don't think they were. I think they were actually very reasonably priced. They were very similar pricing to last year. They didn't go up in that traditional sense. However, it's a case of, when it comes to pricing, it's a case of what is the value at that price? What is the expectation? And you're right, like they have taught their customers that essentially if you wait, you've got a good chance of this lowering, especially once you know that like the initial on sale is not that strong. And it was never going to be, and they waited this year. I think that was a mistake, especially because the financial situation, especially in the UK, have worsened over the last 6 months.
Yeah, they put the tickets on sale very late compared to previous years.
Yeah, and I think they thought they'd get the boost by, Ospreay's return and doing that. That's what Tony was telling people. But I don't think when it comes to these stadium shows that that's the most important thing at first. Like you're selling the stadium show as a brand at first, and then everything else comes later. So it would have been better off having the longer window and having the pre-Christmas window. That's a key concert kind of selling time in the UK in general. But it's one of those things. So what they're doing, I think now is thinking, I think it's quite clear they're not running Wembley next year or a major stadium show in the UK, because you wouldn't be doing this now if you were doing that. Because you're teaching everybody that there's no value. Again, you're coming down to the thing, anybody pay full price is going to potentially be disappointed. So it's like you're trying to get as many people in that building as possible. That's the whole entire aim. And it lessens your value for next time. And that's when you potentially have to look at lower prices because people have got used to paying lower prices. There's a thing I hear quite all the time in other sports where it's like, it's easy to get them to go once. It's not so easy to go twice. And that's where they are right now. We also had a question from Lamora through our email. You can email us questions at trishandsarahpod@gmail.com. There you go. I did half a pun.
Good job.
There we go. Thank you. It said, hey guys.
Lamora, I'll read it.
Oh, you always read it better
than me.
You're going
to answer it. I'll read it.
Answer it.
Well, we'll both answer. Lamora says, hey, you guys, hope you're doing well. We are. Thank you for asking. This is a kind of multi-layered question, but ultimately it's about the long-term consequences of the first Wembley show and if its impact is still being felt today. Occasionally, I'll see a comment from a British wrestling fan talking about how the first AEW wrestling show was ultimately a disappointment and the vibes were weird, mostly criticizing the show for feeling like a Road 2 show for All Out and the Mount Brooks eruption activity being reported during the event. Since you guys are closer to that part of the fandom, do you get the sense that UK European fans were let down by that show? And if so, do you think that's partially or even majorly why the all-in brand does worse year over year business-wise? And then P.S. are y'all also in agreement that stadium shows for wrestling are a freaking slog to get through besides the January 4th Tokyo Dome show? Both of these interesting questions. All right. So first, did you get the impression from British fans that they found the first all-in to be a disappointment?
Oof. I think that depends how invested you were in the Adam Cole MJF thing.
Correct.
Because I think there were people who were disappointed in the lineup, and especially once they witnessed the All Out card 2 weeks later, which was a stronger wrestling card on paper.
Yes.
But I do think if you were terribly invested in the Cole MJF thing and you were happy with the we're all friends now, fuck the belt finish, then you were probably left that show really happy. I do also think that there is an element with these shows where people are happy just to go to a stadium show. It's that WrestleMania thing, isn't it? I go to WrestleMania. You've seen all the videos over the years. And I've got friends who went this year to WrestleMania who have never been to a wrestling show in their lives, but enjoyed it just because it was like they see it as an experience. And I think there was an element to that with All In because it was the first one, the first big stadium show in Europe and that sort of thing. But the people that felt like that are the ones who will be less likely to look again. Because I said this earlier, like, been there, done it. Yeah. Got them in once, hard to get them in twice. That's where you start to need other things, attractions to get them both. Because you're always going to have an element that want to go each year. They want to feel that kind of energy of being in the stadium and seeing wrestling and that sort of thing, which is a legendary stadium in the UK. I think people are playing up the whole "it was my dream to be in Wembley Stadium" thing at the moment. There's too many people doing that right now. Like, stop it, please.
It's ridiculous.
I don't believe you. It's completely inauthentic. Stop it. But it's like there is that element of it, from a fan perspective, where being there is still a thing here. So yeah, there's an element to that, but I do think it's more that I think it's more what I guess you go for. So if you are one of these people that went for the experience, you're probably not coming back anyway. You may be tempted back by cheaper tickets, that sort of thing, offers, deals, because it's it's a big investment. If you're not in London, it's a big investment on a bank holiday weekend. Public transport is very bad because we work on the trains. I don't do any work on a bank holiday. I do, that's a lie. But but in general, it's a problem. So hotels are expensive, flights are expensive, etc. So it needs something more, and then it becomes more about what is on that card. And that's why, everyone felt like, from our perspective, we felt like Omega and Ospreay was a bigger match than the MJF one because people had seen that one before, right? And it didn't draw a huge amount for them last time in that perspective when you look at like the late ticket movement and that sort of thing. And even the bars for that at 158 compared to like 180 to 185 last year. So it's like you're looking at something that Kenny has never really had a huge match in the UK setting. I think that's part of it as well. So you have that unique part of that draw there as well, where you can sell on it because of his popularity in the UK. So I think they've had to look at more. It needs to be more about the card, and I think that's something that's going. I'm going to jump in the next cycle if I'm not careful. We'll talk about the next bit where I think the speculation is kind of looking down the card now, and I think because you are comparing it to other cards, and last year you had 3 top matches at the top, right? You had Omega and Okada, thank you, into Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné into Paige and Moxley. So you had this.
Well, you also had the incredible Ospreay and Swerve tag match.
Yeah, but in terms of what they led in terms of the attraction on the card, there was these 3 big top matches. So people will want this card to match that. And that's the thing now. You have to kind of keep bringing bigger and better things to be able to get the same amount of what you did before, because that newish kind of factor is not there. The same way that WWE struggled with the Vegas thing this year, right? Like, and they didn't have a John Cena this year other than in a suit looking like Vince McMahon. But it's like you have
Which
to do
again, part
more.
of this, again, going back to being the fucking venue, because if they were selling 35,000 tickets anywhere else in the UK, it would be an unqualified success.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Look, if you use
the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, like the dark seats in that stadium as well, they're all grey seating. Like, boxing can run there with 35,000. You don't blink. It's because you're using Wembley that it becomes that thing, because you're then comparing it to yourself.
Yep.
And then obviously bright red fucking seating. It's like Ronald McDonald in there. It's like you just see it. I was watching the Challenge Cup final rugby league a few months ago, and all I could see, and they had everything open in the lower bowl, and then the Club Wembley, the 200 level, and every single thing was open. It was just the top 500s that weren't completely full, but all your eye catches is that massive empty bit at the top. You can't help it. Like, it's just a natural thing. So yeah, I think they need to look at like 42 to around 42 target, because 42 target will get them up to kind of hopefully looking decent on TV, and then you go from there. In terms of stadium shows for wrestling being a slog to get through, besides the January 4th Tokyo Dome show, some January 4th Tokyo Dome shows are also a slog. But some aren't. Like this year, they had a much quicker show because they were thinking, I know everyone hates like thinking about the casuals, but they were absolutely thinking about people that came in for Tanahashi's retirement, who may have been fans previously at Work Now, and people that came in to see Aaron Wolf, which was a huge amount. Never forget the response to him. They were thinking like, we tighten this all up, not just for TV, but for the live audience, so they're not sitting through 5-6 hours of wrestling. So that was like a key consideration for them, and I think it made for a better show. It flowed so much easier. You know, the timing of it was great because everyone got out like 6, 7 o'clock and go out in the evening, and that worked pretty well. I think with the ones that are held in Europe and America, and we've seen this, it's slightly different because WWE now they've moved away from the 6, 7 hour cards to 4 hour cards with 3 hours of adverts. It's completely different. But in terms of what AEW do, yeah, it can be difficult. Like, and it was easier, I think. Do you think it was easier last year with All In because it was earlier in the day?
Yes, I think All In was much, to me, just as somebody watching it, it's much more enjoyable because it's all, whether I'm watching it on TV. I've said that about All In. I said it about All Out too last year. It was just, they're easier to watch when they start at 3 o'clock. That's my preference. I know other people feel differently, but I think it makes it an easier show to consume.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easier from a live experience as well, and easier from a pay-per-view perspective. So, you know, Wembley is a funny one because you have the curfew, although I think they might be breaking that for boxing next year and holding it at 2 a.m., which is insane. But in general, it works better. So there was one other question on Kenny. So I don't miss any questions because I'm really shit when we get questions at making sure I keep hold of them all. So I need to do a better job.
You do a better job than I do, that's for sure.
Can you pronounce the username so I don't screw it up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bloody Roar XX.
Okay, better than
That's
me.
what I'm going with.
Cool. A question, really simple one. If Kenny never had diverticulitis, would he already have been AEW Men's World Champion again?
It's possible, you know, but I also look back at the last couple of years and I'm like, who would he have jumped in front of, right? You know, would we have had more Kenny and Danielson? You know, would we have had Kenny and MJF again? I don't know. You know, it seemed for a while like that was not a group that, or a division that Kenny was particularly interested in being a part of at that level anyway.
I think it goes back to 2023, right? So prior to Kenny's diagnosis, when you look at that summer, Kenny Omega was the biggest babyface in the company.
Yes. He
had the match with Moxley, the cage match in Detroit. And he did a crazy number in the middle of the Elite and Blackpool Combat Club. I know he said Death Riders, but it would have been the same thing. But they had that program in the middle of the year, and he was the hottest babyface. He should have main evented Forbidden Door. It was political why he didn't. You know, even Danielson was kind of trying to get him to main event Forbidden Door. Yeah. And like they just didn't go anywhere with him. And, you know, they looked at plans potentially for him and Danielson to work a match at All In. Obviously, Danielson got hurt. And then there was lots of other stuff going on, and he made the decision, rather than wrestling Takeshita there, to wrestle the 6-man to make sure other people got on the card after all the contract stuff. Because obviously everything was very hotly charged, as Lamar mentioned earlier. You know, I was getting many a message about, you remember relaying messages on like broken Wi-Fi to you lot on CM Punk.
That was pretty great. I really enjoyed that.
There's some great lines in there. I need to go back and read some of that because it's very funny.
There's some messages in there that I've really enjoyed that I don't know that can never really share, but yeah.
The ones for the Punk have are great. But yeah, like, so they had a chance to do something more with him there and they didn't. And there's an element to him where, you know, we mentioned it earlier, where people say he doesn't advocate for himself enough, but he has always kind of thought of, what can I do to get everyone else up to a higher level as much as myself? And, you know, that's their kind of ideology in that group. The elite group is not just about being that sort of level. It's their mentality, isn't it? It's the way they think. They don't always think about themselves first and foremost, and that can sometimes be a detriment in these sort of environments. And it's yeah, you're right. I think it's hard because coming out of that, you know, going into 2024, you'd be hard placed to find where he would slot in at that top level. There is a possibility that it could have happened, but I think if you gave him the choice at that time, would he have pushed for himself over others? I don't know. I think it's a combination of factors where I look at it and I think this year really is now or never for him. You know, next year is last year of his current deal. We'll see what he decides to do next. I don't think he knows. I don't think anybody around him knows what he wants to do next. And that's because of the point of him that he's in his career. So this works out as the right time, right guy, right place, right time. And I think there's been a little bit of disrespect towards him in terms of like MJF has had a very successful year. I think he's media-wise been very, very good for himself, for the company, especially. He's done a great job on that.
There's nobody who has done. You look at all the wrestlers, and some of this, like, let's be realistic, some of this is not always self-propelled. I mean, I think, one of the things people don't always realize is, who's allowed to give interviews and who's given permission to give interviews. And
especially after the last few years, there's so many people whose what they can say is restricted in some ways because of things that have happened. Yeah.
But MJF has been, and especially lately, very good in terms of targeting a media strategy, getting partners on board, getting things pushed the way he wants them pushed and framed the way he wants them framed, which is that's a big piece of it. He's learned that lesson well, and he's executed that strategy a lot this year. You can see it. Good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's this thing where now because of that, like, people are like, oh, Kenny doesn't deserve this or Kenny doesn't deserve that for his numbers. And it's like, that's bizarre, because if I look down the top 3, like, for viewership, you're going to see 3 Kenny mega matches in there. 2 Strickland and the one with MJF. If you look at pay-per-view viewership, B pay-per-views, you're going to see the highest B pay-per-view since, like, maybe it is the highest ever. B pay-per-view is the Dynasty one. If we're talking about, the main 4 and then the rest. And all that matches, it depends where you slip Forbidden Door. But then the top Forbidden Door shows outside the first one will be the second one with him and Will Ospreay, which was the top match, in terms of the draw. So it's like there's this thing to, like, disrespect him like it's a Gold Watch run, and some of that's because of the way they built to it. And again, I think that's where, if they'd done the switch earlier in the year, it possibly changes that. But I don't think you can look at him from a numbers perspective, and especially now you look at the impact that it's had with the tickets on sale this week. That should kind of quiet some of that stuff down. It's like, it's a little bit disrespectful to say, oh, he's not this Impact anymore, because this guy has always been one of their key draws whenever he's been put in places. And the argument for a lot of us has been over the last few years that he's not been put in those places enough when he has been available and healthy to do things. Because you've missed out on that. And especially when you look back at that 2023 segment prior to his illness, I think that's kind of a key one. So I do find that some of the talk are just like, yeah, I get it. Like, and you have to understand that it's engineered in certain ways for you to feel like you do all that. But also it's like, it's not just, oh, we're giving him this run like that. Like, they're expecting him to draw here. And you're seeing how that goes as it is at the moment. So it pisses me off a little bit, but so we've gone through the start of the week, the middle of the week, and we are now at the weekend, and it's too fucking warm to be weekend. And on Friday night we got the the tweet and announcement at the Minnesota Ballpark that Adam Page was back on Saturday on Collision.
Yep.
And I wanted to see what I did with it before I passed me a comment on it, because I got like 10 messages on Saturday morning, like, on different platforms saying, what the fuck are they doing with Hangman? Why don't they treat him as special? Why is he being announced like on the night before? And I thought, okay, I want to see it before I say anything. So what did you think about the way he was brought back in this way? And for now, at least. And what did you think about the promo that he cut on Saturday night?
So I thought I don't know. I can't quite get mad about the way, like, I'm kind of tired of being angry about the way that AEW shoots itself in the foot sometimes with some of this stuff. Like, it just happens over and over. It seems to happen to different people. Like, I don't think that any of it, like, my personal opinion is it's not sandbagging, or like, I'm not, there's a persecution thing about Hangman. I think it's just like, they don't know what the fuck they're doing half the time, which speaks to sort of poor planning and, like, issues and shit going on, but not, so that was my opinion. First of all, it's like, I don't think it's, so on that hand, I think it's just, laziness and disorganization rather than, like, active sandbagging. Yeah. Mm-hmm. More so last year than when they had that incredible promo that they never fucking put on TV. That to me was a bigger.
Oh, the Danielson one in 2024? That's the one you're thinking
one
of.
where Hangman came back and he was furious backstage about
Owen
that never being on TV is a bigger crime to me than him coming back on Collision. I thought it was timing wise for me, it was perfect. The England-Norway game ended. I had 5 minutes. I turned on Collision, watched that, and then went to bed. I'm sorry I did not watch. I did not care enough to stay up to watch. You knew that freaking what the name is that? Argentina.
Oh my God. Messi.
I'm like, what's the name of that country? I was like, Messi's team. Jesus Christ. You knew the Refs were going to be in the tank for them. So I wasn't staying up to watch that. But like, I watched that. I watched the first part of the Hangman. They did something else on Collision. I was like, I'm going to bed. But I thought it was a good promo.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that it was, here we go. Like, I've told you what the story will be. Would you like to come along and be on this ride with me? And I was like, yes, sir. I would like to be on the ride with you. There was a point where I was like, all right, wrap it up. Like, there was a point where he started off like, and I get it. And then he sort of went into a weird place. And I was like, all right, we could get to the point now. I think it was very well done in terms of like, if you're going to question what's going to happen or what this plan is for now, because we know plans change, like it got all laid out for you beautifully. Yep. And I'm looking forward to it because I feel like watching Hangman unravel mentally is a lot of fun. I enjoy it as a hobby. So I'm kind of like, yeah, let's go. I'm really interested. I'm excited to see him mix it up with people and have an excuse to mix it up with people who are not necessarily in the main event scene. Yeah. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. Like, I don't see any issue with it. Like I said, do I think they could have done more to bring him back? Absolutely. Do I think that would also possibly detract from the fact that like the men's singles championship scene has a lot going on now. And if he's not going to be a part of that, then, I don't think Collision is the worst place for him. Like, let's see what happens and where we go from here. I don't necessarily think it was the end of the world, I guess, or it's not any worse than a bunch of than Kenny disappearing from April to July or June. Like,
and then reappearing on the Collision against the Knicks winning the title. Yeah.
Right. That was a way worse sin to me. If he's winning the fucking title than Hangman coming back in a Collision to say that he's going to go after secondary titles. That makes a lot more sense. So
when I watched the promo, I got a feeling like it was a prelude because he talked about the fact that he's got and this was so funny, right? People reported, I saw like clickbait news sites reporting like the tagline that said like recently had a vasectomy, but no one wants to report the fact that he said he basically has the condition where he's got like a pinched or compressed nerve in the back of his neck. Like, what? Like, he's saying, I have a serious injury I've been rehabbing. And it's like, yeah, sorry guys, he's not lazy. And they're like, oh, we're not reporting that, we're going to report that one. I was like, that's the funniest fucking thing ever. But it almost felt like he's not saying exactly, like, they didn't do the thing, oh, he's back wrestling next week. So you still have that thing to play with. This felt like a prelude. Like when they bring someone back halfway through and that sort of thing. So I was more forgiven once I saw that, like, because at first you're just like, come on now, like, at least give him an extra day so like the media rounds and the local like marketing can all be changed to him, which it wasn't, like, unless you watched Twitter, you had no idea he was fucking there, which, because everyone's obviously, they look at his numbers and they'll be like, oh, no, it's like, you didn't give him that shot, so whatever. But when I saw it, I thought, okay, it's more like a prelude, and the idea was like, his whole setup is setting up that whole story because it's like a reset, right? He's like, everyone noticed he was like back in his jacket that he wore at the press conference when the AEW started, and he's like into that detail, the
short
shit.
hair,
and like the same thing, even like the vasectomy thing is like, well, that's something that can be reversed too, right? So it was like he thinks about
snip snap. Do you know
the
toll that 3 vasectomies takes on a man? Sorry. sorry.
But but it's like, but the whole idea was to set up what you're doing next, and for me it was like, I wanted to see him say like, I'm not going to challenge again. I think you had to get that line in there for set up what you're going to do, and he made it very clear. He made very clear word choicing because he says, I intend to keep, and I was like, thank you, yeah, okay, you're a liar. How we get there and what they get to is different, but I thought there was some really important things was about like the pathway, right? Because I think there was this expectation that he'd come back and he would just face MJF and continue in that top part and in the middle of like the world title thing without being able to challenge the world title, which is bizarre, but that was what they set up. And I think that comes from people looking for that second men's match for Wembley on that side, right? Because they can't see it. There isn't that clear thing like there was last year. Like, it's nowhere near clear. Like, you look at it and you look at the main people in it, Darby's running around being Unabomber at the moment, so maybe he does some sort of stip match, but you can't even see who that would be against. Max, who knows what he's doing, who knows what he said he's doing. We'll see if that actually ends up being what he is actually doing. Moxley, like, well, he's not going to wrestle Max, so is he going to wrestle Swerve? The alignment's wrong there. And then you're like, okay, so that's where Paige comes in, right? People start to look at, like, he must be involved in some of these options to have that second match. You can't see it. So that's where it becomes difficult. So then you're like, oh, so he must be coming back and doing the ring thing with MJF. And maybe you could have done that. But there's no point to me in kayfabe because you're not acknowledging what actually happened. It's like I know, like, it is a WWE brain thing, right? It's WWE brain in that he's not acknowledging what he actually lost by, and he's just going to go after that guy, and they're going to do a rematch and a gimmick, and that's it. And it's like, but he didn't. He hung himself. He set the stipulation, and he lost the match by his own actions. It's not like the Cody Rhodes one, where the Cody Rhodes one, MJF cost him and turned on him, right? It's like, he did this to himself. So what is the kind of motivation to go after Max that you have nothing to be angry at Max about? He did not do this to you. So it's like, you can't start from there. So it made sense to me for him to say, okay, I'm going to start with these belts in the meantime. And it is risky, because you are going to put him in that kind of mid-card spot for a period of time, but you can get away with it. And I thought about how they did the first 2 years with him, when he did the tag division stuff with Kenny, but they had him kind of in the opening slots or doing important things. And in this way, he can go into those divisions and he can still be in the key slots in the show, where they'll need him next year. And it's like, but also, like, it feels like it's outside of that kind of main thing. And let's be honest, it's a clever, in a way, political play, right? So if you look at it, we've talked today about people wanting to stay at the top and be in programs over and over and over at the top, right? We talked about how Roman does it. We've looked at how, like, Sami, Jesus Christ, he don't get a shot at it, does he?
Yeah, I was going to say, he ain't doing that.
No, we looked at Cody and Punk and, how they always just come back into the top and how many few losses they take to people outside of that top part of the division, right? So if you're looking at that and you're seeing a situation developing like that in AEW where it's the same people at the top all the time, and you can think eventually people are going to get bored of me, you could start to feel that at the end of last year, and a lot of that's to do what they booked at the end of last year, then in a way you can come away and you can wrestle mid-card titles and you can be the workhorse kind of thing, and you can be on TV probably far more regularly than you probably were when you were kind of gatekeeping the top of the card, right? And then you can come back with this story, which is a guaranteed world title run. So we're all very honest about it. Like, he made it so fucking clear where this is going last night. It was unbelievable. But
oh my God, he practically fucking wrote it out on a fucking erase board and was like, this is exactly where I'm going to lose my mind. Like, oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much. I'm looking forward to seeing that deteriorate in real time.
But what was good about it was, like, when you talk about the way you do that, was he's not doing the loser thing again, because I would have fucking ripped my own eyes out if he was the loser again. He's doing it very similar to the way they did the first one, where he was doing drinking stuff, but he was winning, right? When he won the tag belts and everything like that, he was winning. And that's what you do here. So you can have him winning. And you want that, because when you eventually do what you're going to do next with this, like, you need to have him in the strongest position possible, not being beat up for like 2 years and then going, oh, we're going to do this now. And there is a timer on it. You have the 2-year timer on it, not just because of the AEW TV deals and needing things for that, but also, 2 years is probably before people start to completely roll somebody down into like the next level. And also, it's his contract, right? So, and you need to use that as leverage, whether you're going to stay or go or not. And, I think he would prefer to stay where he is, but you use it as leverage because that's what you have to do, because you want to make money. It's a big contract to your career. These are sensible things. But you're also doing is you're allowing other people to kind of burn themselves at the top, aren't you? They burn themselves out to the point where people are kind of tired of them. And then you have that freshness to go back in. So it's a different type of political play in a way to maybe some of the more blunt things of, things that have been talked about recently, or freeways, or I want to do this after Wembley or whatever. Like, they're more kind of brute force, right? But there's something else to say. I come away from that. I work in developing others. I can be in key parts of the shows for you. Okay, I'm not main eventing pay-per-views and drawing that for you, but we'll give the other people the opportunity to. And it's a risk because you're taking someone out who is, one of the 2 top pay-per-view draws in the company by far. Especially as champion, like, it's not even close. And you have the danger of kind of cycling him down permanently, which is, that would be a complete booking failure, because everyone knows where you do this now and you do it straight after Cody, everyone looks at the Cody one and goes, oh, it could leave, is he going to leave AEW and all this stuff? But you need to play on that. And the key for him is to do all these things, but also to keep playing back into that story, to keep leaving it on the background. Because people are going to talk about this for fucking constantly now. Sorry if you hate that, because they are. Like, it puts him in a much, much better position now. This is the way I look at this now, than what he would have been if he just lost the title, lost to MJF, and then what? Because there's a focal point to the narrative.
I also think Hangman will have slightly better feuds than Cody versus QT Marshall for 6 weeks or however long that 6 weeks, 6 months or however long that was. And if it is, it'll at least touch on some more interesting stuff.
The environment's better, isn't it, as well? Like, you have, as much as we hate having all the belts, it gives you more opportunity. You can do some interesting things like that. But yeah, it's like, I think he loves the gardening metaphor stuff now. But I think the thing that got me was, he was like, I don't know what it's going to blossom into. And you don't. Like, this is a risk. Like, this could either really work out and be, make his career, essentially, or it could really damage him. And you don't know. But you're taking that risk. And you're taking a risk that a lot of other people won't take, because all they want to do is stay in the same spot. And yeah, we went through all the reasons for it. Like, back in February, if you listen to one pre-Revolution, whether I thought I was dooming about all the reasons why. No, they are the reasons why. Go back and listen to it. That's why they were pitched, Sometimes we just say things without saying them, but that is all the reasons. And we'll see how it plays out. But I think it was a nice prelude, a good setup. And they got him to say, basically, it's one of them, it's a little bit like, this is WWE thinking on my part, but you got him to say all the things that you're going to need in those video packages in 2 years. But in 1-2 years, And the other bit to it was like that I think they need to consider that they can go both ways on it. I think there are ways to break it as a face. I think there's ways to break it as a heel. I think if you're married to the heel one, you listen to the response every time he says to the crowd, I'm not going to challenge, or it's brought up, they boo. And that's dangerous, because if you do the turn then and he turns with it, there's a large possibility they're going to cheer the fucking thing on whatever baby face. So just something to keep in the back of their mind.
Trish, I know we had thought about talking about the first night of the G1 or the Chicago show, but I feel like we are already at 2 hours, and that might be a thing we wait till next week, because we are coming back next week, folks.
We are, so we'll do some G1 stuff next week. I'll make you watch the
I was going to say, I enjoyed Raw so much that I will absolutely watch.
I wasn't even going to make you watch a G1 match, no, I will. But I was going to make you watch the new Yota Tsuji entrance that's upset so many people.
I will always watch a Yota Tsuji entrance, you know that.
He's got like a proper
Carmen San Diego.
He's got his proper Eurovision song now, mate. It's like, it sounds like Eurovision.
So it's bad?
No, I don't know. Like, for me, it's like, I think he looks badass, but everyone's like, I hate it. It's like a pop song. And I'm like, I don't know. I think
I will find some of these matches through legal or illegal means, and I will watch some of them, and we will discuss them next week. Because I always enjoy jumping into New Japan and being like, this is what I thought was happening.
Yeah, we can catch up on if Suji's played some golf with Tony Khan yet or not. He's such a worker. Like, every time I read him, like, no wonder people in New Japan don't think he's got long left there. That's a funny thing, isn't it? I think he's got a few years and was like, when's he going to AEW? Yeah, I can see why. Anyway, so this has been episode 65.
65, plus or minus a few Bs.
Indeed. 65.
We'd almost be eligible for Social Security if our podcast was a human being in the United States.
Are we 67 retirement age now? Has that gone up here? I don't know. I'll look that up. It's going to be a long time before it. By the time I get there, mate, it'll be like 75, 80. That's the way we're going. Not a chance. I'm not even that old. I'm not even that young. I'm grey enough now. Jesus. But yeah, it's just not enough now to put more into my railway pension. Anyway, yeah, it trains. We never finish these things properly anymore, No. And I left off the best question. Seth Rogen sent us a question that just said, is Seth Rollins the Mr. Elegance of WWE? And
I think that's even poor Seth Rollins. That's a terrible insult. Purport. I feel bad for Seth Rollins. Somebody's like, is he the Mr. Elegance of WWE? That's brutal. God damn.
Evil comment. Evil.
Well, I don't know what to do without there being a World Cup match today, Trish.
I know, it sucks. It actually does. Like, I was just like, what are we doing this evening? And what am I doing? There's no Grand Prix, there's no World Cup. I always miss the World Cup. Did you enjoy the Erling Haaland, Jude Bellingham stuff from last night?
Oh,
they're very cute, aren't they?
I loved it when Bellingham touched his butt and then he giggled. And then they had a long, beautiful embrace after the match was over. I was watching, TikTok was like, you need to be a part of this. And I was like, yeah, I will. We'll call it a bromance, whatever. I'm here for it. Erling Haaland, I was like, why didn't that guy pass to him? And why did they take him out of the game before it was over? That was Soloth? Like, what the fuck? Pass to that guy.
That fucking pass. And I was like, at what point in your life did you think I'm going to do better than the best striker in the fucking world?
Like, that's where you give Harry Kane credit. And don't get me wrong, he's taken a lot of shots, but he's like, oh, Bellingham's open, I'm passing to that guy. Like, he's not
He doesn't do
precious.
fuck all. Oh, don't start me on Harry Kane.
Look, I'm saying this to you right now. I am watching the World Cup as a tourist. I am a tourist in the land of soccer, and I'm enjoying my stay.
Football.
But I'm not well versed. I am like questioning where the train stops are and how do I pay for it. And I'm asking what does this mean? I don't know, but I'm having a great time and I'm enjoying it very much.
But that's a World Cup, isn't it? That's a World Cup. It's like you don't ever have to watch any other football in your life, but you just get into it, and all the fans and everyone are enjoying themselves. That is the beauty of a World Cup. We're now football podcast. We're gonna take over Counter Pressed.
I am sad that Boston, quote unquote, Boston Stadium, which fucking cracks everybody in Boston up because it is literally like 30 miles south of Boston. It's nowhere near Boston. It's absolutely fucking far away. Everyone's like, oh, Boston Stadium. I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine. But it's gone back to being a football stadium and a not good football stadium, the other kind of football stadium. But yeah. We'll see.
We'll send you once a year. We'll send you videos of Scott singing Loch Lomond in there because that was amazing.
I'm confident that there's going to be a huge swath of Boston tourists in Scotland next year. So you guys better prepare for that. You got to get as much alcohol, maybe not quite as much alcohol as we had to get for you guys, but stock up.
Oh, never mind that. In like 18 years, there's going to be a whole bunch of Bostonian ginger kids going to Scotland. Oh god. Anyway, right. This has been episode 65 of the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast.
It has.
We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcasting Network. You saw
many T-shirts during the Kenny Omega and MJF match during the oh god, what the fuck was that move? You Can't Escape threw MJF right into Josh and Jeremy from Keeping It Strong Style. So if you want to go back and take a look, their really cute faces are on TV.
So, the former ace of New Japan, straight throwing somebody straight into the ace of podcasts. There you go.
Exactly.
There we go. But yeah, you can listen to Keeping It Strong Style, especially as we head into the G1, as well as all the other great podcasts on our network, wherever you get your podcasts, Red Circle, Spotify, take your pick. You can also find us all at the Social Suplex Discord, the much heralded and talked about, but without anyone posting. What did someone say? It's just like...
Just fucking don't be assholes.
The only rule is don't be a dickhead.
Fucking assholes.
Don't be a dickhead. We don't get rid of you, you're not a dickhead. There you go. Yeah. Easy rule. But if you aren't a dickhead and you do want to come talk to us, you can find us there. Also, there are the wonderful women from Tunnel Talk. Yay! Woo! I bet Leah thought I forgot there. She waved. And we are produced by the wonderful Leah of Tunnel Talk, who looks after us and is doing this quick turnaround, even though we delayed a week because we are bad, but it was more because we knew all the news was coming this week and it felt pointless to go last week. So apologies
it's
for the
wait.
wait.
We're going to talk about title changes that haven't happened yet. Let's just wait a week and we'll talk about title changes.
Yeah, it makes no sense, right? Let's just talk about them after they happen. So that is why we are now. But we thank Leah for everything she does for us, including this really quick turn around to get this into your ears as quick as we could. You can contact us on X, Twitter, fucking X, I'm not saying X. You can find us at Trish and Sarah on Twitter. You can find us under our own names on Blue Sky. You can email us, as we mentioned earlier, trishandsarahpod@gmail.com with your questions, queries, comments, or anything else that you like. We will be back next week. It is a quick turnaround, and I'll talk to you about. We might have some extra things this month. It's going to be a busy, busy month for Trish and Sarah this month. So if you are sick of us already,
tough shit
for you, because we're going to be around. So until next time, I have been Trish.
And I've been Sarah.
And this has been episode 65 of the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for listening.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.